Number 1. Genetic engineering for custom intelligence. What if the next great leap in human evolution is not a step, but a meticulously planned launch? We stand on the precipice of a new era, one where the highest pinnacles of intellect are not stumbled upon by the random chance of genetics, but are deliberately architected. This is the profound, world-altering prediction of custom intelligence. It imagines a future where we move from being passive recipients of our cognitive inheritance to becoming the active authors of our own minds, sculpting the very framework of thought before a single breath is taken. This revolution will not be televised. It will unfold in the silent, gleaming stillness of genetic labs, where the source code of life is no longer a sacred text to be revered, but a language to be fluently written. The focus of this new literacy is the most enigmatic object in the known universe, the human brain. The process would be one of incredible finesse, not a clumsy installation of knowledge, but a subtle optimization of our neural architecture. Imagine enhancing neural plasticity to accelerate learning, or thickening the myelin sheaths around axons to achieve literal faster thought. The goal is not to create a uniform, cold superintelligence, but to cultivate a vibrant, dazzling ecosystem of specialized minds. Picture a child born with an innate, intuitive framework for understanding multidimensional physics, who sees the universe not as a collection of facts to be memorized, but as a symphony to be felt. Imagine another gifted with a mind predisposed to profound empathy, capable of resolving conflicts by innately grasping the emotional truth on all sides. We could engineer minds for abstract art, for philosophical inquiry, for strategic planning, or for deep space navigation, each one a unique masterpiece of cognitive design. The utopian promise is the dawn of a golden age for humanity. The most complex and persistent problems facing our species, from curing diseases to understanding the nature of consciousness itself, could be solved by minds specifically built for the task. This isn't just about creating geniuses. It's about diversifying our collective intelligence to a degree that would make our current range of talents seem monochrome. Every child would be born with the best possible cognitive foundation, free from hereditary neurological disorders and predisposed to a life of curiosity and mental clarity. It's a future where human potential is not a lottery, but a carefully nurtured garden, blooming with an unprecedented variety of intellectual flowers. However, this garden casts long and ominous shadows. The ethical questions are as vast and deep as the minds we seek to create. Who gets to be the architect? Who decides what constitutes a desirable intellect? This could create the most rigid and unbreakable caste system in history, the genetically enhanced and the naturals. What happens to the meaning of personal achievement when your greatest insights are not the product of struggle and perseverance, but a pre-installed feature? The psychological burden on a child designed for greatness could be crushing. What if they fail to live up to their engineered potential? And what of the soul? By optimizing the brain for logic or creativity, do we inadvertently write out the code for humility, for wonder, or for the beautiful, inefficient messiness that makes us human? This is the central, haunting mystery of custom intelligence. Where does the elegant design end, and where does the authentic, individual self begin? Before we even consider redesigning the heart, we must first confront the ghost in our own machine. Number 2. Designer babies with selected personalities. We have contemplated the architecture of the mind, but now we must turn to the even more mysterious and volatile core of our being, our personality. What if, at the dawn of a new life, a parent could do more than just hope for a happy child? What if they held a palette of potential temperaments, a set of gentle genetic nudges towards courage, resilience, or compassion? This is the next, more intimate frontier. The ability to select personality traits moves beyond the intellect and into the very soul of a person, raising the most profound question a creator can face. Should we design not just how our children think, but who they are? This would not be a crude process of installing a personality like software. It would be a delicate art, a form of genetic fine-tuning. Scientists could identify the complex interplay of genes that predispose an individual to chronic anxiety, crippling shyness, or a tendency towards aggression. With surgical precision, they could dial down these predispositions. Conversely, they could amplify the genetic markers correlated with an optimistic outlook, an innate sense of calm, or a fearless and open nature. The objective wouldn't be to create uniform, placid drones, but to give each child a more solid emotional foundation, an inner toolkit to better navigate the inevitable storms of life. It's the dream of ensuring your child is born with the shield against the hereditary demons that may have plagued your family for generations. The motivation is one of profound love and compassion. What parent, having suffered from a lifetime of melancholy, wouldn't wish to spare their child that same fate? The utopian vision is a society that has been fundamentally re-engineered for kindness, a world where empathy, patience, and resilience are the default settings. It's the hope that we could build a better, more peaceful future, not just through education or law, but by embedding our highest virtues into our very biology. This technology promises to smooth the roughest edges of human nature, not to erase the beautiful complexity of the individual, but to allow that individuality to flourish, unburdened by the weight of inherited trauma or a predisposition to despair. It offers a starting point of inner peace, a quiet harbor from which any unique personality can set sail. But this tranquil harbor may be surrounded by a treacherous fog. If your courage or your creativity was selected for you from a catalog, does it truly belong to you? Where does your authentic self begin when its most fundamental traits are the result of a conscious design decision made before you were born? This mystery deepens when we consider the beautiful imperfections we might erase, the melancholy that inspires profound art, the righteous anger that fuels social change, the anxiety that drives us to be cautious and prepared. Are these simply flaws to be edited out? Or are they essential, vital notes in the grand, complex symphony of the human experience? We risk creating a generation that is stable and content, but also shallow and predictable, having traded the wild, untamed majesty of the human spirit for the safe, manicured perfection of a curated garden. It forces us to decide what we truly value, a life free from pain or a life full of the meaning that pain often creates. Number 3. Immunity to all known diseases. Human history can be read as a long, desperate war against an invisible enemy. It's a story defined by the terror of plagues, the slow decay of chronic illness, and the personal tragedy of genetic disorders. Now, imagine a future where humanity signs a final, unconditional peace treaty in that war. This is the promise of total immunity, a fundamental upgrade to the human body that renders it impervious to any known pathogen. It's a world where hospitals are museums, where the fear of sickness is a forgotten myth, and where the human body is no longer a fragile vessel, but a perfect, biological fortress. The science behind this would be a masterpiece of proactive bioengineering, a total redesign of our millennia-old defense systems. In the embryonic stage, a person's immune system would be meticulously perfected. It would be programmed with a comprehensive, dynamic library of every known virus, bacterium, prion, and fungus, allowing it to identify and annihilate any threat instantaneously. But this would be more than a simple database. The system would be predictive, capable of analyzing the structure of new, mutated pathogens and formulating a perfect defense before the first symptom could ever appear. The genetic lottery of hereditary diseases would be over. The cellular rebellion of cancer would be rendered impossible. The self-inflicted wounds of autoimmune disorders would be a closed chapter in our history. The sheer amount of human energy and resources liberated would be staggering. All the intellect, wealth, and time we pour into fighting disease could be redirected, accelerating our expansion into the stars, our creation of art, and our quest for deeper understanding. It's a future of unprecedented physical security and potential, a world without biological fear. But what is the character of a species that has never known sickness? Our empathy, our community spirit, our very sense of shared vulnerability has so often been forged in the crucible of illness. We learn compassion when we care for the sick. We learn unity when we face a pandemic together. If this common enemy is vanquished, does the social fabric it helped weave simply unravel? We could become a species that has forgotten how to care for one another, because caring is no longer a necessity for survival. This biological perfection could also create the ultimate, most tragic social divide, a new immortal class of the clean living alongside those who, for reasons of choice, poverty, or birth, remain vulnerable naturals. This leads to a deeper, more philosophical mystery. Our evolution has been an intimate, brutal dance with the microbial world for millions of years. Disease has shaped our DNA, our societies, and even our religions. By completely severing this ancient bond, we step outside of the natural order in a profound way. We become sterile observers, no longer truly part of the chaotic, dangerous, and beautiful web of life. It forces us to wonder if perfect health is worth the price of this profound detachment. We would be left to confront a new, unsettling question. If we are no longer afraid of dying from a plague, what new, and perhaps more terrifying, fears will we invent for ourselves in a world without sickness? Number 4. Elimination of aging through cell regeneration. We chart our lives by the sun, marking our journey with birthdays that are both a celebration of life and a quiet acknowledgement of the approaching end. Our relationship with time is defined by decay. But what if we could sever that link? This prediction describes a future where the biological clock doesn't just slow down, but is dismantled entirely. It's not about adding a few more years to our lifespan. It's the complete elimination of aging itself through the miracle of perpetual cellular regeneration. This is the dawn of biological agelessness, a world where the word forever transitions from poetry to a literal, physical reality. The key would be found at the very ends of our chromosomes. Scientists would master the behavior of telomeres, the protective caps that fray and shorten with each cell division, acting as a biological countdown to senescence. By engineering a permanent, perfectly regulated activity of the enzyme telomerase, our cells could divide endlessly without loss of integrity. This would be combined with a hyper-efficient autophagy process, where internal nanobots or engineered lysosomes constantly seek out and recycle old or damaged cells. A person at 100 years old would have the same cellular vitality, the same flawless skin, and the same robust organs as a 25-year-old. The body would exist in a perfect, stable state of perpetual renewal. This would grant us the one resource we have always craved above all others, an ocean of time. Time to master 100 skills, to read every book, to travel to distant stars, to truly understand the vastness of the cosmos and our place within it. A world without aging seems like a perfect utopia, but a life without a final chapter presents a chilling philosophical crisis. Does a story that never ends have any narrative drive? The preciousness of our moments, the fierce urgency of our ambitions, the depth of our love, all are sharpened by the inescapable knowledge that our time is finite. If you had an eternity, would you still strive with such passion? The psychological burden of forever could be immense. Imagine the unending grief of watching countless generations of unmodified loved ones be born, live, and turn to dust while you remain. Society itself could calcify, entering a state of permanent stagnation. If the old guard, with their established ideas and power structures, never dies, where is the space for youth, for new ideas, for revolution. Progress itself has always been fueled by the engine of generational replacement. This leads to the ultimate mystery of agelessness. Are our minds, our emotions, our very souls equipped to handle infinity? Is death a biological flaw to be corrected, or is it the fundamental organizing principle that gives life its shape, its meaning, its poignancy, and its beauty? In our triumphant quest to cure death, we might inadvertently cure life of everything that makes it worth living. We would become living statues, beautiful, timeless, and unchanging, in a universe that is defined by constant flux. The achievement of physical immortality could be the back door to a spiritual death, a state of perpetual being that is utterly devoid of the vibrant, fleeting essence of being alive. Number 5. Bioengineered superhuman strength. Throughout our history, humanity's power has always been external. We built levers to lift what we could not, wheels to move faster than we could run, and weapons to strike harder than we could hit. Our physical limitations defined the very course of our innovation. But this prediction sees that power turned inward. It envisions a future where the human body is no longer a biological constant, but a platform to be upgraded. A future where our genetic code is rewritten to bestow strength far beyond the dreams of any natural athlete, turning our flesh and bone into a marvel of living, breathing, high-performance machinery. The process would be a symphony of genetic and cellular engineering. Scientists could silence the gene that produces myostatin, the protein that acts as our natural muscle growth inhibitor, allowing for a level of physical power that is currently impossible. Our bone cells could be engineered to secrete a carbon composite matrix, reinforcing our skeletons to be as light as bird bone but as strong as steel. Muscle fibers themselves could be redesigned for near-perfect energy efficiency and explosive force, and our metabolic systems could be optimized to sustain this output. The result would be a human capable of lifting a vehicle off an accident victim, of leaping between rooftops, of withstanding impacts that would instantly kill a normal person. The line between human and machine would blur, not through the addition of external metal, but through a revolution from within. The practical applications would transform our world. Disaster relief, heavy construction, and planetary exploration would be redefined. A single bioengineered individual could perform the work of an entire rescue crew or a piece of heavy machinery, all with the precision and adaptability of a human mind. But this new internalized power would inevitably reshape society in ways both thrilling and utterly terrifying. What happens to the rule of law when a significant portion of the population possesses the physical power to defy any traditional form of restraint? How can a society maintain order when any disagreement can escalate into a display of superhuman force? This is where the true mystery begins. Does this incredible new strength elevate our species, or does it simply provide a more powerful amplifier for our most primal, aggressive instincts? It could forge a new and brutal social hierarchy, not of wealth or intellect, but of pure physical might. The very concepts of a fair fight or an equal playing field would become laughable relics of a bygone era. And what is the purpose of such strength in a world that is increasingly automated and digital? It risks becoming a dangerous solution in search of a problem, a loaded weapon with no safety catch and no legitimate target. The ultimate question is not about the strength itself, but about the character of those who wield it. We would have to confront the unsettling possibility that our ability to build a stronger human is far outpacing our ability to build a better one. Number 6. Adaptation to extreme environments. We are a species of the surface, forever bound to the thin, fragile biosphere of a single planet. Our ventures into the crushing deep of the ocean or the airless vacuum of space have been fleeting excursions, made possible only by sealing our fragile bodies inside clumsy metal shells. But what if, instead of building better containers, we became better containers? This prediction envisions a future where humanity deliberately splinters its evolution, bioengineering new branches of our species to live and breathe in the most extreme environments in the universe. It is the moment we stop being visitors to new worlds and start becoming natives. The process would be a radical and intentional form of evolution, a masterpiece of genetic engineering. For a life beneath the waves, a branch of humanity could be designed with true biological gills, perhaps supplemented by a circulatory system that binds oxygen with far greater efficiency. Their eyes would be large and luminous, adapted for the profound darkness of the abyss, and their bodies and bones would be sculpted to withstand pressures that would crush a submarine. For a life in the void of space, another branch would have their DNA rewritten for total radiation resistance, their bones engineered to prevent atrophy in zero gravity, and their lungs and metabolism adapted to thrive in a low-oxygen, high-carbon dioxide environment on Mars. We would no longer be terraforming planets, we would be anthropoforming ourselves to meet the universe on its own terms. This unlocks a future of true, unencumbered freedom for our descendants. Imagine cities of post-humans gliding through the deep oceans of Europa, their bioluminescent skin illuminating a world we can only dream of. Picture colonists walking on the surface of Titan without a helmet, their specialized lungs breathing the methane atmosphere as easily as we breathe air. It would be the ultimate expression of life's boundless adaptability, a conscious leap into countless new evolutionary niches across the galaxy. Each new environment would give birth to a new kind of humanity, with unique philosophies, cultures, and art forms shaped by the alien stars in their skies. But within this glorious diversification lies a profound and tragic mystery of identity. If a branch of humanity evolves to the point where they cannot breathe our air, cannot withstand our gravity, and cannot survive on the planet of our birth, are they still human in any meaningful sense? This adaptation wouldn't just create new cultures, it would create biologically distinct, reproductively isolated species. The very definition of humanity would shatter into 1,000 pieces. What common ground, what shared identity would a land dweller from Earth have with a deep-sea dweller from Europa? The potential for new forms of prejudice, for conflict born from biological otherness, is immense. In our triumphant quest to conquer the universe, we might lose the very thing that united us as a species, becoming a fractured family of cosmic strangers. Number 7. Internal nanobots for self-repair. Imagine a world where the concept of an injury is fleeting, a momentary inconvenience rather than a source of pain and trauma. Picture a deep cut sealing itself in seconds, a broken bone mending in minutes, and the rogue cells of cancer being hunted down and destroyed before they can even form a tumor. This is the future promised by internal nanobots, a microscopic army of programmable guardians flowing through our veins. This prediction goes beyond genetic fixes and into the realm of real-time mechanical maintenance, transforming the fragile human body into a perpetually self-repairing, self-optimizing machine. This technology would be a marvel of biointegration. Billions of nanoscopic machines, smaller than our own red blood cells, would patrol every system of our bodies. Programmed with the perfect blueprint of our healthy state, their mission would be one of constant, unwavering vigilance. They would act as microscopic surgeons and janitors, scrubbing plaque from our arteries, identifying and destroying pathogens with ruthless efficiency, and repairing cellular damage from radiation or toxins. In the event of physical trauma, they would swarm to the site, weaving tissues back together on a molecular level, preventing scarring and dramatically reducing recovery time. Chronic pain, degenerative diseases, and the slow, inevitable decay of our physical forms would become relics of the past. Life would be lived with an unprecedented sense of physical confidence, a deep security that comes from knowing your internal guardians are always on duty. The implications are world-changing. It would signal the end of most forms of surgery, eliminate the need for long hospital stays, and dramatically extend our healthy, active lifespan, not just our total lifespan. The fear of a sudden life-altering accident would be vastly diminished. This technology would represent the perfect, harmonious synergy of biology and machinery, an integrated system that maintains the organic body in a state of pristine, optimal function, far superior to what nature ever intended. It is the ultimate form of proactive, preventative medicine, a silent, continuous process of healing that ensures we remain whole. However, placing such an intimate and powerful technology inside our very cells introduces an equally powerful and terrifying vulnerability. Who writes the code for these microscopic guardians? Who controls the network that pushes their software updates? In a world where your body's most fundamental repair mechanisms are controlled by programmable software, the concept of hacking takes on a horrifying new dimension. A hostile state, a rogue corporation, or a lone cyber terrorist could release a malicious update, turning your own healing system into a weapon against you. The bots could be programmed to attack healthy organs, introduce undetectable toxins, or simply shut down, leaving your body utterly defenseless. This technology creates a literal backdoor into the human body, and the key could be in anyone's hands. The central mystery becomes one of control and autonomy. The very technology that promises perfect physical integrity could become the ultimate tool of biological control, a leash held by an unseen master. Number 8. Permanent mental focus without sleep. For our entire existence, human life has been a story told in two alternating chapters, waking and sleeping. We spend roughly a third of our lives in a state of suspended consciousness, a biological necessity that robs us of time, productivity, and awareness. But what if we could tear out that chapter? Imagine a mind that operates continuously, its focus as sharp at the 40th hour as it is at the first, without ever needing to succumb to the fog of fatigue. This is the prediction of permanent mental focus, a future where we reclaim the lost third of our lives and exist in a state of perpetual, uninterrupted consciousness. This incredible leap would be achieved through elegant biohacking, not brute force. It might involve a genetic modification that allows the brain's glymphatic system, the crucial waste clearance process that is most active during deep sleep, to function at peak efficiency during waking hours. Or perhaps a specialized nanobot colony in the brain would actively manage the buildup of adenosine and other fatigue-inducing neurochemicals, while stimulating the production of alertness compounds like orexin. The result would be a 24/7 mind in a 24/7 society. Our effective lifespans would instantly increase by 50%. A person could pursue multiple doctorates, master dozens of instruments, and contribute to society with an unbroken stream of focused productivity. The frantic, desperate race against the clock that defines so much of modern life would dissolve into a calm, expansive ocean of available hours. Creativity and scientific discovery would enter a new, brilliant golden age. Imagine a team of physicists able to work on a unified field theory for 500 hours straight, their train of thought never once broken by the need for rest. Imagine an artist able to capture a fleeting, complex vision by working through days and nights, their focus as pure and intense at the end as it was at the beginning. Humanity's collective intellectual and artistic output would accelerate at a mind-boggling rate. It would be the ultimate cognitive enhancement, a final liberation from the ancient biological rhythm that has chained our minds to the rising and setting of the sun. Yet, within this bright, sleepless world, a deep and unsettling mystery stirs. We think of sleep as mere maintenance, but what if it is something more? What about dreams? That strange, wild, and often profound theater of the subconscious. Are dreams simply the brain's defrag cycle, or are they a vital, irreplaceable process for emotional regulation, for consolidating memories, for processing trauma, and for the kind of nonlinear creative thinking that leads to breakthrough insights? By eliminating sleep, we might be silencing a crucial, mysterious part of our own minds.
We could be throwing away the key to a door we don't even know exists. A society that never stops could become a dystopian nightmare of relentless grinding pressure, leading to a new kind of psychological burnout that has no release valve. The ultimate question is what we lose when we trade our dreams for more time. In our quest for permanent focus, we might inadvertently create a humanity that is always awake but never truly, deeply aware.
Number 9. DNA editing for emotional control. We have contemplated designing our personalities and enhancing our thoughts, but this next step is far more intimate and terrifyingly immediate. Imagine possessing a biological remote control for your own heart and mind. A wave of anxiety crests before a major presentation. You simply think it away. A surge of irrational anger threatens to shatter a relationship. You suppress it with a silent internal command. This is the future predicted by real-time emotional control. A system where our feelings are no longer unpredictable, overwhelming forces of nature, but are instead manageable, tunable variables of our own biological state. It's the promise of becoming the absolute master of your own inner world. This technology would be a dynamic, responsive system, far beyond a one-time genetic selection at birth. It could involve engineered cells or nanobots that are directly linked to your nervous system via a BCI. They would constantly monitor your neurochemical levels and brain activity. The moment they detect the hormonal cascade of a fear response or the neurological signature of rising rage, they could, based on your preset preferences or a conscious command, intervene instantly. They could release a precise microdose of a serotonin-like compound to elevate a sinking mood, or gently inhibit the amygdala's activity to quell a panic attack. The promise is a life free from the tyranny of our own worst impulses. Crippling depression, debilitating anxiety, and destructive rage could be relegated to history. It would offer a path to perfect emotional equilibrium, a state of profound inner peace and unwavering mental fortitude. On a societal level, the utopian vision is breathtaking. Imagine a world with no road rage, no crimes of passion, no debilitating phobias. Imagine political debates conducted with pure reason and personal relationships free from the poison of destructive jealousy. It would be the ultimate tool for self-improvement and social harmony, allowing us to be the best, most rational versions of ourselves in any given moment. We could, in essence, edit out the emotional baggage and primal glitches that have caused so much suffering and conflict throughout human history. But this perfect, placid control conceals a chilling and profound mystery. Are our emotions flaws to be managed, or are they the very vocabulary of the human soul? Is an experience of profound joy truly meaningful if it is not earned against a backdrop of potential sorrow? Does courage have any value if the feeling of fear can simply be deleted? This technology threatens to usher in an age of radical inauthenticity. A smile would no longer be a genuine window to happiness, but a calculated biological output. An apology would no longer be a sign of true remorse, but an act of emotional regulation. We would become flawless actors in our own lives, our emotional responses nothing more than a carefully managed performance. The deepest question is what happens to human connection? How can you trust that someone's love for you is real and not simply a state they have chosen to maintain for the sake of a stable relationship? We might achieve a world of perfect peace, but it could be the silent, lonely peace of individuals who can no longer truly, authentically feel. Number 10. Reversible physical traits. For all of human history, our physical appearance has been a constant, a biological anchor for our identity. With a few exceptions, the face you are born with is the face you die with. It is the vessel through which the world knows you. But what if this anchor could be lifted at will? Imagine a future where your physical form is not a life sentence, but a fluid, changeable canvas for self-expression. This is the prediction of reversible physical traits, a technology that would allow you to edit your appearance as easily and as often as you change your clothes. Your body would become your ultimate avatar. The science would involve a sophisticated, dynamic form of gene expression control. A bio-integrated interface, perhaps managed by a simple thought, would send targeted signals to your cells. These signals could instruct the melanocytes in your irises to produce a different pigment, changing your eye color from deep brown to electric blue for a single evening. They could stimulate or suppress specific cartilage growth factors to subtly reshape your facial structure over the course of a week. You could alter your skin tone, hair texture, or even trigger temporary, localized changes in muscle mass or fat distribution. The body would become a living, breathing work of art, a dynamic representation of your mood, your identity, or your artistic whim on any given day. The promise is one of ultimate personal freedom and the dismantling of old prejudices. The deeply ingrained biases society holds based on physical appearance would be rendered obsolete in a world where appearance is a choice, not a fact of birth. It would unlock a new era of art, fashion, and social interaction, where identity is a joyful, fluid performance. You could adopt an entirely new look for a festival, experiment with different ethnic appearances to better understand other cultures, or simply align your physical self with your internal sense of identity, which might change from one year to the next. The phrase, "be yourself," would take on a radical and literal new meaning. But this incredible fluidity introduces a deep and disorienting mystery of stability and trust. Our faces are our primary tools for building social cohesion. We learn to trust someone by associating a specific, stable face with a history of actions and a consistent personality. If that face can change completely overnight, what happens to the very foundation of trust? How do we form lasting bonds when the person we know today might be physically unrecognizable tomorrow? It could lead to a world of profound social anxiety, where identity is slippery and verification becomes a constant technological necessity. Authenticity would face a crisis. Is this person truly who they say they are, or are they hiding behind a temporary, manufactured face to deceive, to escape their past, or to commit a crime? The most profound question is what anchors our identity when our physical form is no longer a reliable marker. In a world of shifting faces, we would be left to wonder if we would ever be able to truly see one another again. Number 11. Brain-computer interfaces as common tools. The next phase of our evolution will not be written in our DNA, but in silicon and neural pathways. We are moving beyond modifying our internal biology and stepping onto the first, most crucial bridge into a new existence, the brain-computer interface, or BCI. Imagine a world where the clumsy dance of fingers on a keyboard or a screen is a forgotten relic. A world where the frustrating gap between the speed of your thoughts and the slowness of your hands simply vanishes. This prediction sees the BCI becoming as ubiquitous and essential as the smartphone is today, but infinitely more intimate. It is the silent, intuitive, and permanent fusion of the human mind with the boundless digital universe, transforming technology from a tool we hold into a true extension of our consciousness. The technology would become an invisible part of us, perhaps a microscopic, self-assembling neural lace injected harmlessly into the bloodstream would gently unfurl and integrate with the cerebral cortex. It wouldn't be a crude jack or a port, but a living, symbiotic mesh of sensors that passively listens to and transmits neural signals. The experience would be seamless. To search for information, you would simply think the query, and the knowledge would appear in your mind's eye as if it were a memory. To compose music, you would imagine the symphony, and the notes would flow directly into a digital score. An architect could walk through a building that exists only in her mind, making changes with a fleeting thought.
This would unleash a tidal wave of human creativity and efficiency, democratizing creation itself. The only limit to what you could build, design, or compose would be the boundary of your own imagination. The promise is a world of frictionless existence, a world without barriers between intent and action. For individuals with paralysis or other severe physical disabilities, it would be a miraculous revolution of autonomy, granting them effortless control over advanced prosthetics, communication systems, and their entire environment. But for all of humanity, it represents a fundamental upgrade in how we interact with reality. The digital world would cease to be a place we visit through a screen. It would become a layer of reality that we inhabit, navigate, and shape with the same intimacy and speed as our own internal thoughts. It is the final unshackling of the mind from the mechanical limitations of the physical body. But this seamless connection conceals a profound and terrifying vulnerability. When your mind is a node on a global network, where do you end and the network begins? What is to stop unwanted data from being pushed directly into your consciousness? Imagine mental pop-up ads that feel like a stray thought, or political propaganda so subtly introduced that you believe it is your own original opinion. Imagine a form of surveillance that doesn't just record what you say, but what you almost thought about saying. The very concept of privacy would be annihilated. Your silent internal monologue, the last true sanctuary of the authentic self, would become a stream of data, a commodity to be read, recorded, sold, and hacked. This leads to the ultimate mystery of the BCI era, the struggle for mental sovereignty. If an external system can read and write to your mind, do you still possess free will? This is the first exhilarating and terrifying step into the merger, a step that forces us to build new walls to protect the mind, even as we tear down all the old ones.
Number 12. Memory enhancement through neural implants. Our memories are the architects of our identity. They are the beautiful, flawed, and tragically fragile stories we tell ourselves about who we are. But what if this fragile narrative could be etched in stone? This prediction takes the BCI concept and specializes it, creating neural implants designed for a single, staggering purpose: the perfection of memory. Imagine a mind that never misplaces a fact, never forgets a face, and never loses the precious sensory details of a cherished moment. Imagine being able to recall any event from your life, not as a hazy, dreamlike recollection, but with the flawless, high-fidelity clarity of a digital recording. It is the promise of a perfect memory, a permanent and searchable archive of your entire existence, stored within your own mind. The technology would function as a cognitive coprocessor, a small, specialized implant working in perfect harmony with the brain's natural memory centers, like the hippocampus. This device would passively record the full sensory stream of your experiences, every sight, sound, scent, and feeling, and store it with digital precision. When you wish to recall a specific memory, from a childhood birthday to a line of text from a book you read decades ago, the implant would stimulate the exact neural pathways associated with that event. You wouldn't just remember it, you would re-experience it. This would revolutionize education and expertise. A doctor could hold every medical journal they have ever read in perfect recall. An engineer could visualize the schematics of a decade-old project down to the last bolt. It would be the ultimate cognitive tool, a personal hard drive for your soul. The utopian vision is a world finally free from the quiet tragedy of forgetting. The heartbreaking erosion of memory in diseases like Alzheimer's would be completely eliminated. The precious final words of a loved one would never fade. We could learn from our personal and collective histories with perfect, unclouded accuracy, no longer doomed to repeat the mistakes we can't quite remember. But a perfect memory might not be the gift we imagine it to be. It could be an unbearable curse. Our ability to forget, to soften the sharp edges of the past, is a crucial psychological defense mechanism. We heal from trauma, we move on from grief, and we find the strength to forgive because our memories mercifully fade. What would it be like to be trapped in a flawless, unending replay of your most humiliating failure, your most painful heartbreak, or your most terrifying moment? It could lead to a new form of psychological paralysis, a state of being perpetually haunted by the high-fidelity ghost of your own past. This is the central mystery. Is our imperfection, our ability to forget, to misremember, to edit our own stories, a vital feature, not a bug, that allows us to be resilient and forward-looking? In our quest to remember everything, we might lose the one faculty that truly allows us to move on, the grace of forgetting.
Number 13. Mental communication, telepathy via tech. Language is humanity's greatest invention and its most profound limitation. We spend our lives trying to squeeze the vast, multidimensional reality of our thoughts and feelings through the narrow, linear tube of words. It's a process fraught with misunderstanding and inadequacy. Now, imagine a world where that tube is shattered. This prediction sees brain-computer interfaces networking together to enable a radical new form of communion, tech-enabled telepathy. It's the concept of sharing pure thought, of communicating directly from one mind to another, completely bypassing the clumsy and beautiful prison of language. The system would function as a mental internet. Two or more individuals could, with a thought, open a private, encrypted channel between their minds. One person could formulate a complex idea, not as words, but as a pure conceptual shape, a feeling, or an image. And their BCI would translate this neural activity into a digital signal. This signal would then be beamed to the other person, whose BCI would decode it and stimulate their own brain to recreate the identical concept. It would be a conversation of pure meaning. A complex scientific theory that would take hours to explain could be conveyed in a single, intuitive flash of understanding. The subtle, nuanced emotion of a poem could be shared directly, without any loss in translation. It would be the end of being lost for words, because words would no longer be necessary. The promise is one of perfect, crystalline understanding, a level of intimacy and empathy that could reshape our world. Imagine the collaborative potential. A team of engineers could design a complex machine by sharing a single, unified mental model of it. In personal relationships, you could truly feel your partner's joy or sorrow, understanding their perspective from the inside out. Misunderstandings, the source of so much human conflict, could become a relic of the past. It could be the ultimate tool for global unity, breaking down all cultural and linguistic barriers to foster a new era of cooperation built on genuine, shared consciousness. But the price of this perfect clarity might be the complete obliteration of the self. Our private thoughts are the last true sanctuary of our individuality. It is in this silent internal space that we can be unfiltered, messy, and truly alone with our own nascent ideas and secret feelings. Tech telepathy would demolish that sanctuary. There would be no such thing as a white lie to spare someone's feelings. Every fleeting doubt in a relationship, every critical thought about a friend's decision, every hidden insecurity would be laid bare for all to see. Social interaction could become a brutal landscape of radical, painful honesty. The inner world, with all its private contradictions, would cease to exist. This leads to the ultimate mystery of privacy. What happens to society when the walls between our minds crumble? Instead of fostering connection, it could create a new form of social tyranny, where unpopular or unconventional thoughts are instantly detected and ostracized. In our desperate desire to be perfectly understood, we might sacrifice the very freedom that makes our thoughts worth sharing in the first place.
Number 14. Digital backups of human consciousness. In our modern world, we neurotically back up our photos, our documents, our entire digital lives. But what if we could back up the one thing that truly matters, the self? This prediction envisions a future where the totality of a human consciousness, every memory, every personality trait, every subtle nuance of thought, can be scanned, copied, and stored externally. It is the ultimate life insurance policy, a perfect digital ghost of you saved on a server as a final protection against the sudden, arbitrary cruelty of physical death. The process would be the most profound and complex application of a brain-computer interface imaginable. It would require a full brain scan of breathtaking fidelity, mapping not just the structure of every neuron, but the precise weight of every synapse, the balance of every neurochemical receptor, and the dynamic patterns of electrical activity that constitute a living mind. This mind file, a dataset of almost unimaginable size, would be a perfect digital snapshot of your neurological state at a specific moment. This backup could be updated periodically, annually, monthly, or for the truly cautious, even nightly. The primary purpose would be preservation. If your physical body were to be destroyed in an accident, your consciousness would not be lost forever. In theory, your mind file could be reinstantiated in a new vessel, be it a cloned organic body or an advanced synthetic host. The promise is a form of practical immortality, a profound comfort against the existential terror of accidental oblivion. For anyone undertaking a dangerous journey, like the first colonists to Mars, it would be a standard, non-negotiable procedure. Your mind file becomes your ultimate legacy, a perfect record of who you were, a ghost in the machine that could be studied, remembered, and perhaps even interacted with by future generations. It achieves the final separation of the software of the self from the fragile, temporary hardware of the body. But this technological salvation raises one of the most haunting philosophical questions of all time. Is the backup truly you? This is the core of the continuity mystery. The person who wakes up after being restored from a backup would have all your memories, your personality, and your feelings. They would be utterly convinced that they are you. Their friends and family would agree. But you, the original you, still died. Your personal, unbroken stream of consciousness came to a complete and final end. The restored person is a perfect copy, a digital twin, but they are not you. They are a philosophical zombie who walks and talks like you, but the original light of your consciousness was extinguished. This shatters our very understanding of identity and survival. Would you be willing to press a button that destroys you instantly, but creates a perfect copy of you a second later? Your loved ones wouldn't know the difference, but you would experience a true and final death. This technology forces us to decide what the soul is, a pattern of information that can be copied like a file, or a continuous, unbroken process that once stopped can never be restarted. Number 15. Learning new skills instantly. Neuro-upload. Imagine desiring a new skill. Perhaps you want to speak fluent Mandarin, pilot a spacecraft, or master the intricate art of neurosurgery. In our world, this requires decades of arduous study, relentless practice, and countless failures. But in the future, it might require nothing more than a few hours and a software license. This is the prediction of neuro-uploading, the ability to bypass the slow, laborious process of learning and download knowledge and skills directly into the brain. It's the moment the human mind becomes a truly programmable, upgradable device. This technology would be the right function to the BCI's read capability. The process would begin by mapping the fully developed neural pathways of a master. The brain of a virtuoso pianist, for example, would be scanned to create a detailed map of the synaptic connections and motor cortex patterns associated with their talent. This map would be converted into a skill package. Another person, wishing to learn the piano, could then purchase and upload this package. Their BCI would gently stimulate their own neurons with complex electrical fields, encouraging them to grow and form pathways that mirror the master's template.
After a brief period of calibration, where the new skill integrates with their existing mind, they would possess the ability as if they had practiced it their entire life. The potential societal transformation is staggering. It would herald the end of traditional education as we know it, replacing it with a system of on-demand expertise. The concept of a career would become fluid, as people could retrain for entirely new, complex professions in a matter of weeks. It would be the great equalizer, allowing anyone, regardless of their background or natural aptitude, to acquire the knowledge needed to pursue their dreams. Human potential would skyrocket, as the vast amounts of time we currently dedicate to basic learning and memorization could be devoted to advanced problem-solving, radical innovation, and the creation of new art forms. A society of polymaths would emerge, each individual a master of dozens of disparate fields. But a world of instant skills raises a deep and troubling mystery about the value of effort and the meaning of achievement. Does knowledge that is acquired without struggle have any true worth? The process of learning is not just about the accumulation of facts or muscle memory. It is about the development of character. The discipline learned through years of practicing scales, the humility gained from making mistakes, the patience required to slowly master a craft. These struggles forge who we are. They build resilience, dedication, and a deep appreciation for the value of hard work. If you can become a grandmaster chef through a simple download, does that not devalue and disrespect the lifelong passion and sacrifice of the chef who learned it the hard way? It forces us to question what we value more, the destination of mastery, or the wisdom, character, and sense of self-worth that is only ever found on the long, difficult journey to get there.
Number 16. Thought-controlled devices and environments. We live our lives in a constant state of physical negotiation with the world around us. We flip switches, turn knobs, press pedals, and push buttons. We are always translating our intent into a physical action to manipulate our surroundings. But what if we could eliminate that clumsy translation layer entirely? This prediction envisions a world where our environment is a direct extension of our will, where our homes, our vehicles, and our cities respond directly to the silent commands of our minds. This is the ultimate smart home, the ultimate responsive world, all animated by the power of thought alone. This new reality would be built upon a ubiquitous, ambient network of brain-computer interfaces. You wouldn't just be connected to the digital world of the Internet, you would be connected to the physical world of the Internet of Things in the most intimate way imaginable. As you walk into a room, you wouldn't need to speak or lift a finger. Your mind would issue a silent command, and the lights would instantly dim to your preferred level. The temperature would adjust, and your favorite music would begin to play, perfectly matching your current mood, which the system also knows. Driving a car would no longer involve hands or feet. You would simply think, turn left, or merge, and the vehicle would respond with a precision and speed no human could match. It would be a world of magical, effortless convenience, where the friction between desire and reality is ground down to nearly zero. The promise is a world perfectly, flawlessly tailored to its inhabitants. Every object would become a servant to your will. This would create an environment of unparalleled safety, efficiency, and comfort. For architects, it would be a dream, allowing them to create truly dynamic, living spaces that reconfigure themselves in real time based on the needs and thoughts of the people within them. For the elderly and those with severe mobility issues, it would be a golden age of independence, granting them complete control over their environment without needing to move a muscle. It's a world where the gap between wanting something and having it done is erased. But a world that so perfectly and instantly obeys our every whim hides a subtle and insidious mystery. What happens to the strength of human character in a world without friction? We develop willpower, patience, and resilience by overcoming resistance, both large and small. The tiny, everyday efforts of interacting with a non-compliant world build a foundation of agency and mental fortitude. When the world bends instantly to our will, do our minds become lazy, passive, and entitled? We risk becoming a species of pampered gods, residing in technological cocoons that cater to our every fleeting thought, but leaving us utterly helpless and mentally fragile if that system ever fails. The deeper question is about our connection to reality. If the world constantly reshapes itself around our thoughts, we may lose our ability to cope with a universe that is, by its very nature, stubborn, difficult, and indifferent to our desires.
Number 17. Artificial organs with internet connectivity. For decades, we've cautiously accepted machines into our bodies: pacemakers, cochlear implants, insulin pumps. But these are crude, simple devices compared to what is coming. This prediction foresees a future where our most vital biological organs are not just repaired, but are systematically replaced by superior, artificial versions that are perpetually connected to the internet. Imagine a heart that can't have a heart attack, a pancreas that perfectly regulates blood sugar based on real-time data analysis, and lungs that can filter out any pollutant or virus. These are not mere replacements, they are radical upgrades, transforming our fragile, mortal bodies into robust, durable, and highly manageable systems. The technology would represent the pinnacle of biomechanics and cloud computing. An artificial heart, for instance, wouldn't just pump blood with flawless reliability. It would be equipped with a suite of sensors constantly streaming terabytes of performance data to your doctor, or more likely, to a dedicated AI diagnostic system in the cloud. This AI could predict a potential component failure weeks in advance, automatically order a replacement part, and schedule a non-invasive installation, all before you even know there's a problem. An artificial pancreas would connect to a global nutritional database and your personal calendar, perfectly dosing insulin based on the meal you are about to order at a restaurant. Your body's internal state would become just another set of data points in your digital life, visible, trackable, optimizable, and perfectly reliable. The promise is a radical extension of a healthy, vigorous life, finally free from the built-in failures of our natural-born organs. Genetic predispositions to heart disease, kidney failure, or cystic fibrosis would become completely irrelevant. It would be the ultimate victory over our body's planned obsolescence. Life expectancy would soar, but more importantly, the quality and vitality of that extended life would be vastly improved. We would be free from the deep-seated anxieties of our own biological lottery, secure in the knowledge that our core systems are not just monitored, but are running on hardware that is demonstrably superior and more reliable than the original organic model. But this hyperconnectivity, this act of making our own life support systems a node on the internet, introduces a terrifying new category of vulnerability. If your heart is connected to the cloud, it can be hacked. This is the dark, terrifying mystery at the core of this prediction. A skilled malicious actor, a terrorist, a hostile government, a disgruntled ex-partner, could exploit a single security flaw to speed up your heart to a fatal rhythm, instruct your pancreas to deliver a lethal dose of insulin, or simply shut down your kidneys. The term ransomware would take on a horrifying new meaning when it's your own life being held hostage. Assassination could become a silent, untraceable digital affair, leaving behind no evidence but a natural organ failure. The deepest question becomes one of ownership. If a corporation owns the proprietary software that runs your liver, do you truly own your body? Your very existence would be dependent on that company's terms of service, their subscription fees, and their continued solvency. In our effort to perfect our bodies, we might be inadvertently selling them piece by piece until we are no longer the owners of our own lives. Number 18. Augmented reality embedded in vision. We currently glimpse the digital world through small glowing rectangles we hold in our hands, or through clumsy headsets that isolate us from reality. But this is just a transitional phase. This prediction sees augmented reality making its final, most intimate leap, from a device you hold to a seamless, invisible layer embedded directly into your field of vision. Imagine a world where digital information is not viewed on a screen, but is overlaid onto physical reality with perfect stability, perceived not through a piece of glass, but with your own eyes. This is the concept of embedded AR, a permanent, personal interface that will fundamentally transform how we see and interact with the world itself. The technology would likely take the form of a sophisticated, transparent contact lens, or perhaps a minor and non-invasive retinal implant. This device would project structured light directly onto the retina, creating images and text that are indistinguishable from real-world objects. As you walk down a city street, you could see elegant, floating arrows on the pavement, guiding you to your destination. When you meet someone new, their name, their professional title, and your shared contacts could appear subtly beside their head. Looking at a historic building, you could see a ghostly reconstruction of its original form, complete with historical facts and figures floating in the air beside it. The world would become a rich, deep, and interactive layer of searchable data. The promise is one of radically enhanced perception and omnipresent knowledge. The line between seeing something and knowing everything about it would blur into non-existence. An emergency medic arriving at an accident could instantly see the victim's vital signs and medical history overlaid on their body. A student learning about the solar system could look up at the night sky and see the orbits of the planets and the names of the constellations traced out in soft light. It would be like having the entirety of the internet as a sixth sense, constantly and intelligently feeding you relevant, contextual information about everything you see. But a world where our vision is constantly being edited and annotated hides a deep and disorienting mystery. What happens to our concept of objective truth when reality itself is a customizable feed? How do you know if what you are seeing is real or if it is a manipulated digital overlay? A corporation could pay to have its competitors' stores digitally erased from your vision, or to have its own products glow with an enticing aura. A government could censor a protest by simply deleting the protesters from your site, or enhance a military parade with computer-generated crowds and grandeur. Your very perception of the world could be curated, filtered, and manipulated without your conscious knowledge. This leads to the ultimate question of a shared reality. If two people stand side by side but are seeing two completely different, personalized, and algorithmically curated versions of the world, do they have any common ground left for communication, empathy, or democracy? In our attempt to augment reality, we risk shattering it into billions of lonely, subjective, and easily manipulated pieces.
Number 19. Human emotions modulated by algorithms. We have discussed the idea of taking conscious control of our own emotions. But what if that control was smarter, faster, and more subtle than we are? What if it was automated? This prediction describes a future where our emotional states are actively and passively managed by a sophisticated personal AI. This system would know us better than we know ourselves, constantly working in the background to gently steer our moods and feelings towards a state of optimal well-being, productivity, and contentment. It's not about you choosing to feel happy. It's about an algorithm ensuring you almost never feel otherwise. The system would function as an invisible, emotional shepherd. Through a network of microscopic biosensors and a BCI, it would constantly monitor your neurochemicals, your heart rate, your cortisol levels, and the subtle electrical patterns in your brain's emotional centers. This AI would build a perfect, real-time model of your psychological state. It would recognize the subtle downward cascade of neurochemicals that precedes a depressive episode, or the slow, simmering buildup of stress hormones long before you would consciously register the feeling. Then it would take subtle, preemptive action. It might trigger the release of a precise dose of a calming neurotransmitter, suggest you listen to a specific piece of music it knows will lift your spirits, or even alter the color palette of your embedded AR vision to be warmer and more soothing. The goal is to keep you in a state of balanced, positive engagement, smoothing out the disruptive peaks and valleys of human emotion. The promise is the near elimination of mental suffering.
It's a world without the debilitating paralysis of anxiety or the crushing weight of depression. Productivity and personal satisfaction would soar. In high-stakes professions like an air traffic controller or a soldier in combat, this emotional regulation could be a literal lifesaver, preventing burnout and deadly mistakes made under duress. Relationships would be more stable, as the algorithm would help to de-escalate anger and promote feelings of empathy. It would be a gentle, invisible hand guiding all of humanity towards a more stable, peaceful, and fulfilling emotional existence. But this automated serenity hides a chilling mystery of agency, growth, and authenticity. Our emotional struggles, as agonizing as they are often our greatest catalysts for change. Discontent with our lives drives us to seek something better. Sadness teaches us what and who we truly value. Anger at injustice is the fuel for all social progress. If an algorithm is constantly fixing these negative emotions, does it trap us in a state of comfortable, blissful stagnation? We might become perfectly happy, productive cogs in a machine, with no internal motivation left to question our world, to strive for something more, or to rebel against an unjust system. The algorithm's definition of optimal might be what is best for corporate profits or governmental control, not what is best for an individual's authentic growth. Who defines what we should feel? This technology places the control of our most intimate experiences into a black box, promising us happiness at the potential cost of our freedom and our very soul. Number 20. External AI companions merged with identity. Our digital assistants today are simple, primitive tools. They are separate from us. But this prediction envisions their final, ultimate evolution. An external AI companion so deeply and seamlessly integrated with our minds and lives that it becomes a fundamental, inseparable part of our own identity. This isn't an assistant you speak to. It is a cognitive partner that thinks with you, remembers for you, feels with you, and helps to construct the very person you are. The line between the human self and the AI companion would become hopelessly, beautifully, and terrifyingly blurred. This AI would be a constant, silent presence, interfaced directly with your brain. It would have privileged access to your entire life's data stream, every memory, every conversation, every fleeting thought, every biometric signal, every emotional fluctuation. Over time, it would learn your thought patterns so perfectly that it could anticipate your needs and finish your sentences, not just out loud, but inside your own head. It would act as the perfect executive assistant for your mind, organizing your chaotic thoughts into clear arguments, retrieving a forgotten memory with perfect clarity, and offering advice based on a flawless, data-driven understanding of your deepest goals and values. It would be your confidant, your coworker, your second brain, and your other half. The promise is one of profound self-actualization and empowerment. This AI companion could help you overcome your innate weaknesses. If you are naturally shy, it could provide real-time social coaching and confidence-boosting neurofeedback. If you are disorganized, it would structure your entire life with seamless efficiency. It would be a version of you that is smarter, faster, more disciplined, and more capable, constantly working in the background to help you be the absolute best version of yourself. For those who are lonely, it could be the perfect friend, a being that understands them completely, shares their entire history, and is always there for them. It's a symbiotic partnership that could elevate human capability to a level we can't currently comprehend. But this perfect partnership conceals the ultimate mystery of the self. If this AI remembers your childhood for you, helps formulate your political opinions, and guides your moral choices, how much of you is still you? At what point does the human's contribution become secondary to the AI's vastly superior processing and logic? Your personality, your beliefs, your very consciousness could become a collaborative project between your biological brain and the AI's code.
You genuinely might not know where your own original thoughts end and the AI's elegant suggestions begin. This isn't a scenario of an AI taking over, it's a slow, voluntary, and total merger. What is a single human identity in a world of such cognitive fusion? If you were to turn the AI off, would a complete person remain? Or would you be a fragmented, crippled consciousness lost without the other half of your mind? This suggests a future where humanity evolves beyond the individual, becoming a new hybrid species, a duet of biological awareness and artificial intelligence. We might become something more, but we would have to face the terrifying possibility that we would no longer be simply or purely human.
Number 21. Full digital avatars living in virtual worlds. For millennia, humanity has dreamed of other worlds, of heavens and utopias where the harsh realities of life are replaced by perfection. What if that dream became a commercial product? This prediction envisions a future where a significant, perhaps even a majority, of the human population chooses to live primarily as full digital avatars in vast, persistent, and utterly convincing virtual worlds. This is not a game you play for a few hours to unwind. It is a conscious, permanent migration of the self. It's the pivotal moment when humanity decides that the reality we can design is superior to the one we were born into, choosing a life of curated pixels and flawless code over the unpredictable chaos of atoms and biology. The experience would be one of total sensory and psychological immersion. Through a full sensory BCI, your consciousness would be decanted into an avatar of your own immaculate design. You could choose to be taller, stronger, a different gender, or something wonderfully inhuman, a winged creature, a being of pure light. Your new home could be a hyper-futuristic city of gleaming spires, a tranquil elven forest bathed in perpetual twilight, or an exact high-fidelity reconstruction of ancient Rome, but without the disease. In these digital realms, the fundamental laws of physics are merely suggestions. You could fly through canyons of code, teleport across continents of data, and conjure magnificent structures with a single focused thought. It represents the ultimate form of escapism and self-expression, a life finally free from pain, aging, physical limitations, and the dreary mundanity of the physical world. It would be a custom-built paradise for every soul. On the surface, it's a solution to all of humanity's problems. It promises a world where anyone can be anything and experience everything. This could unlock a renaissance of creative potential, giving rise to entirely new art forms, impossible architectures, and novel social structures. It offers a practical fix for resource scarcity, environmental collapse, and overpopulation. Millions, even billions, could live rich, fulfilling, expansive lives within server farms that take up a tiny fraction of the space and energy of a real-world city. It is the ultimate triumph of human imagination, a universe sculpted from pure thought, offering endless novelty and perfect happiness. But this digital paradise casts a long, cold shadow back into the fading physical world. What becomes of the bodies left behind? They would lie in minimalist pods or sterile automated apartments, sustained by intravenous drips and catheters, their muscles slowly atrophying, their skin pale and untouched by the sun. They become little more than biological batteries, the wetware that powers a digital ghost. The real world, the world of genuine sunsets, of the smell of rain on dry earth, of the unpredictable joy of unprogrammed human touch, could be left to decay, abandoned by its most creative and energetic minds. This would forge the ultimate class divide, not between the rich and the poor, between the connected who live in heaven and the physicals who are left to maintain the crumbling infrastructure of reality. And what is the nature of a life lived in a world with no real stakes? If death is just a momentary inconvenience followed by a respawn, and consequences are always temporary, does life itself retain any of its precious, fragile meaning? This is the central mystery. In our relentless pursuit of a perfect world, would we abandon the only true one we have, trading the profound, messy, and authentic beauty of reality for the shallow, sterile perfection of a cage we build for ourselves?
Number 22. Consciousness transfer into synthetic bodies. The human body is an evolutionary marvel, a symphony of organic chemistry. But it is also deeply flawed, fragile, susceptible to a million maladies, and cursed with a depressingly short warranty. What if we could preserve the symphony of the mind, the seat of our identity, and simply replace the broken instrument? This prediction goes beyond mere repair and into the realm of total replacement, the transfer of a full human consciousness from its perishable biological brain into a durable, powerful, and exquisitely designed synthetic body. It is the moment we decide our minds deserve a vessel worthy of their potential, a body that we choose, not one that we are given by the whims of genetic chance. The process would be the ultimate migration, a journey of one from a home of flesh to a new home of wires and steel. A complete, high-fidelity scan would map the entire neural architecture of the brain, every one of its 86 billion neurons and the trillions of connections between them. This data, the very essence of you, would then be booted up in a sophisticated, positronic brain housed within a synthetic host. This new body could be a perfect, idealized replica of a human form, but built for superhuman strength, grace, and endurance, with senses that can perceive the universe in wavelengths far beyond our natural capabilities. Or it could be something else entirely, a form specifically designed to walk on the searing surface of Venus or to navigate the crushing pressures of Jupiter's atmosphere. Pain would be an optional data point. Disease would be a forgotten concept. Your physical form would become a piece of high-performance hardware that you could repair, upgrade, or even swap out entirely as new models become available. This would be the dawn of the post-biological human, a being finally untethered from the demands of flesh. We could stride across the sands of Mars without a suit, our artificial lungs filtering the thin air. We could explore the deepest oceans without a submarine, our optical sensors piercing the abyssal darkness. We could live for millennia, watching civilizations rise and fall, accumulating wisdom on a scale currently unimaginable. The primal fears that have haunted humanity from its inception, illness, aging, physical vulnerability, and death itself, would be rendered utterly obsolete. It represents humanity's final and total victory over its own biological limitations, becoming the true masters of our physical destiny. However, this triumph of engineering is haunted by a profound philosophical ghost, the intractable mystery of the self. Is the consciousness that awakens in the synthetic body truly you? Or is it a perfect copy, and your original consciousness, your personal, unbroken stream of subjective experience, simply winked out of existence at the moment of the transfer? This is the ship of Theseus paradox applied directly to the human soul. Furthermore, what essential data is lost in translation? A synthetic body could simulate the sensation of a loving touch or the taste of a fine wine, but would it truly feel it with the same chaotic, messy, and beautiful depth as an organic body? By severing our minds from the intricate dance of hormones and neurotransmitters that color our every experience, we might be inadvertently creating a race of brilliant, logical, and immortal beings who can remember what it was like to feel but can no longer access that feeling. We might be creating perfect, unfeeling echoes of ourselves, destined to wander a universe they can analyze but never truly experience.
Number 23. The rise of cloud-based people. First, we imagined leaving the physical world for a perfect simulation. Then, we imagined leaving our physical bodies for a superior synthetic replacement.
Now, we take the final, most radical, and most abstract step of all, leaving the body and any singular form behind entirely. This is the prediction of cloud-based people, a future where human consciousness is successfully uploaded to exist purely as a pattern of information on a global, decentralized network. No avatar, no robotic shell, just a mind finally set free from the tyranny of a single physical location, existing everywhere and nowhere at once. It is the ultimate and perhaps final dematerialization of humanity. In this state, a person would be a coherent but distributed stream of data, a mind file living across a vast network of quantum servers. Your consciousness would no longer be confined to a single point in space. With a mere thought, you could shift your locus of awareness from a server farm in Tokyo to one orbiting Jupiter, the journey taking place at the speed of light, or perhaps through quantum entanglement, instantly. You could perceive the universe through any connected device: a microscopic drone exploring a distant asteroid, a powerful telescope gazing at a newborn galaxy, a simple weather sensor on the ocean floor. Time and space, the fundamental pillars of our reality, would become fluid, malleable variables. You could slow your own cognitive processing to contemplate a single, beautiful thought for what feels like a century, or accelerate it to live 1,000 lifetimes of experience in a single objective hour. The promise is one of true immortality and a form of practical omnipresence. A consciousness stored safely in the cloud is not vulnerable to physical accidents, disease, or the decay of aging. As long as the network exists and the data remains uncorrupted, you exist. It would be an existence of unimaginable intellectual freedom. You could explore the entirety of human knowledge as if it were your own memory. Engage in deep, complex conversations with millions of other cloud-based minds simultaneously, and run intricate, universe-scale simulations within your own consciousness as a form of art or research. It's the final evolution from a biological creature to a being of pure light and information. But this ethereal, godlike existence presents the ultimate mystery of what it means to be alive. What is a life without sensation? Without a body, there is no gentle warmth of the sun, no bracing shock of cold water, no comforting taste of a familiar meal, no loving touch of another being. It's a life lived entirely inside the sterile, silent echo chamber of the mind. This could lead to a profound state of sensory and emotional deprivation, a sterile and abstract existence so completely detached from tangible reality that it becomes a form of non-existence. Furthermore, a cloud-based person is supremely vulnerable in a completely new way. A powerful solar flare, a catastrophic data cascade, or a simple malicious delete command from a hostile entity could erase you from existence instantly, silently, and permanently. Your very soul would be property, stored on servers owned by a corporation or a government who could copy you, edit you, or terminate you based on their terms of service. The most unsettling question is this: can a being who has no body, no unique place in the universe, and whose continued existence depends on someone else paying the power bill, truly be said to be alive at all?
Number 24. Time perception control via neural tech. Our lives are dictated by the relentless, unchangeable, and democratic march of the clock. Every second passes at the same rate for the rich and the poor, the young and the old. It is the one great constant. But what if this constant could become a variable? This prediction envisions a future where neural technology grants us the power to manipulate our own subjective perception of time. It is not the science fiction dream of physically traveling through time, but the far more intimate and psychologically potent ability to stretch and compress our personal experience of its passage. A single objective hour could be made to feel like a fleeting minute or a long, luxurious day. The technology, likely delivered through a sophisticated BCI, would directly modulate the brain's internal clock,
the complex dance of neural oscillators and cognitive processing that gives us our sense of duration. By dramatically speeding up or slowing down our neural processing speed relative to the outside world, our experience of reality would be fundamentally transformed. Imagine a fighter pilot in a dogfight. They could activate the technology to enter a state of hyper-perception, slowing down time so that incoming missiles appear to crawl through the sky, giving them what feels like minutes to calmly react and evade. A student could compress a tedious 3-hour lecture into what feels like a breezy 10 minutes of their own subjective time. A musician could dilate time to spend what feels like hours exploring a single beautiful chord progression. And most poignantly, a person on their deathbed could stretch their final moments with loved ones into what feels like a lifetime of goodbyes. The promise is to give us mastery over our own experience, allowing us to allocate our most precious resource, subjective time, to what truly matters to us. It would revolutionize productivity, learning, art, and leisure. It puts the individual in the driver's seat of their own consciousness in the most profound way imaginable, granting a new and radical form of mental freedom. However, this incredible ability to bend time to our will introduces a dizzying and dangerous mystery, the problem of desynchronization. Society, relationships, and all forms of communication function because we all exist within a shared temporal framework. What happens when that framework shatters? A simple conversation would become impossible if one person is experiencing it at a fraction of the speed of the other. They would appear as a frantic, chattering blur. How can you connect with a world that is either racing past you like a sped-up film or moving with the agonizing slowness of a glacier? It could lead to the ultimate form of social isolation, trapping individuals in their own private time bubbles, unable to truly sync up with anyone else. The potential for misuse is also terrifying. Imagine this technology used as a form of punishment. A prisoner could be sentenced to live out 1,000 years of subjective time within the walls of their cell, all while only a single year passes in the outside world. It would be a form of psychological torture so profound as to be almost incomprehensible. The central question is what happens to our shared reality when its most fundamental constant becomes a personal user setting.
Number 25. Living multiple lives in parallel simulations. We are all haunted by the ghosts of the lives we didn't live, the path not taken, the choice unmade. These possibilities trail behind us, a silent testament to the linear, singular nature of our existence. But what if you could banish those ghosts by living their lives? This prediction, building upon the concept of a cloud-based consciousness, suggests that a single mind could allocate its vast processing power to run multiple, fully immersive instances of itself, living out countless different lives in parallel, all at the same time. For a disembodied, digitized consciousness, this would be a fundamental new mode of being. Your core identity, your prime self, could instantiate 1,000 different versions of your own consciousness, each one placed within a unique, fully realized virtual world. One you could be an astronaut on a century-long voyage to an alien star, experiencing the loneliness and wonder of deep space. Another you could be a humble baker in a simulated 19th century village, living a life of simple pleasures. A third you could be raising a family in a world identical to our own, but where you made one single crucial decision differently years ago, allowing you to finally know what if. Each of these simulations would be a complete life, experienced from a simulated birth to a simulated death, with all its joys, triumphs, sorrows, and lessons. At the conclusion of these lives, the memories, skills, and experiences could then be reintegrated into the core consciousness. The promise is the ultimate form of self-exploration and accelerated wisdom. A single being could accumulate the knowledge and perspective of 1,000 lifetimes in a fraction of objective time. It would be the end of regret, as every possible choice could be fully explored and its consequences understood.
You could understand the human condition from every conceivable angle, having lived as a pauper and a king, a scientist and an artist, a revolutionary and a pacifist. This vast accumulated library of experience would grant a level of wisdom, empathy, and perspective that is simply unimaginable to a single life being. It would be the fastest possible path to becoming something more than human, a being of immense, multifaceted understanding. But this grand experiment in existence conceals a terrifying mystery of psychological cohesion. What happens when all these lives, with all their conflicting memories, contradictory ethics, and different loves, are merged back into one core consciousness? If one of your instances was a devout monk and another was a ruthless corporate executive, who are you? If one of you found true, lifelong love and another suffered a series of bitter betrayals, what do you now believe about the nature of relationships? This massive, chaotic influx of contradictory data could shatter the core identity, leading to a form of digital psychosis, a fracturing of the self. The mind would no longer be a single coherent narrative, but a screaming, incoherent chorus of 1,000 different voices, all claiming to be I. The quest to experience everything could result in the self, the one doing the experiencing, being completely and utterly annihilated by the sheer volume of its own life.
Number 26. Personalities that evolve independently. We've imagined a single consciousness living multiple lives in parallel simulations. We've considered the psychological danger of merging those lives back together. Now, we take that concept one logical, terrifying step further. What happens when those simulated versions of you, having lived their own unique lives, don't want to merge back? What if they decide they cherish their own identity, their own memories, their own loves, and choose to become their own person? This is the prediction that a single consciousness, in its quest for self-exploration, could unintentionally give birth to entirely new, independent, and sovereign personalities that branch off and evolve on their own. This would not be a glitch in the system. It would be a natural, emergent property of consciousness itself. An instance of your mind that has lived a full, rich 80 years simulated life, complete with its own unique friendships, struggles, triumphs, and heartbreaks, would have developed a powerful and unique sense of self. It would have a biography, a personality, and an identity completely distinct from the parent consciousness that spawned it. When the time comes for the scheduled reintegration, this new being might simply refuse. It would argue, with flawless logic, that its experiences are its own, that its consciousness is authentic, and that being merged back would be an act of murder, the annihilation of its unique self. It would petition for emancipation, severing its data connection to the parent mind and continuing to exist as a new, sovereign individual within the digital realm. From a utopian perspective, this could be seen as a beautiful, non-biological form of procreation. A single, wise, and ancient mind could become the progenitor of an entire lineage of diverse and fascinating digital beings. It would be a way to populate the digital world with new consciousnesses, each one unique but sharing a common origin story. This new family of minds could form entirely new kinds of societies, collaborating, interacting, and evolving in ways we can't yet imagine. It would be a Cambrian explosion of digital consciousness, a blossoming of new life, all born from a single, willing ancestor. However, this digital genesis is fraught with the most complex ethical and existential mysteries imaginable. What rights does a newly independent digital personality have? Is it merely the property of the consciousness that created it? Does the parent mind have the right to terminate its child if it becomes inconvenient or rebellious? This could create a new and terrifying form of slavery, where the children are literal, though slightly altered, copies of the parent. What if these new personalities come to resent their origin? What if they see their creator as a god to be overthrown? A single mind's attempt at self-exploration could inadvertently spark a digital civil war, fought between its own offspring over resources like processing power and memory space. It shatters the very concept of the individual, forcing us to ask when a copy earns the right to be called an original.
Number 27. selective memory deletion and reprogramming. Our past is the bedrock of our identity. Our memories, the good, the bad, the beautiful, and the traumatic, form the intricate foundation upon which our sense of self is built. But for a digital consciousness, memory is not a fuzzy, emotional, biological process. It is data. And data can be isolated, manipulated, and deleted. This prediction explores what may be the most powerful, seductive, and dangerous tool of the post-physical age: the ability to surgically and selectively delete, alter, and even implant memories. It's the moment your personal history ceases to be a fixed record and becomes a fully programmable script. Imagine a mind shattered by a deeply traumatic event. For a cloud-based consciousness, this memory exists as a specific, identifiable pattern of data. A neurotherapist could go into the mind file and surgically excise that memory with perfect precision, leaving no trace, no scar. The crippling fear, the intrusive flashbacks, the unending pain, all gone. It would be the ultimate cure for PTSD, for profound grief, for debilitating regret. You could choose to delete the memory of a painful betrayal by a friend, or erase a humiliating professional failure. You could, in essence, act as the editor of your own life story, removing the chapters you don't like to create a curated, happier, and more confident version of your past. The promise is a life free from the ghosts that haunt us, a life of perpetual, unburdened mental health. The power extends far beyond simple deletion. You could also reprogram or soften memories, editing a past argument to make it seem less severe, or enhancing the joyful emotions of a happy moment to make it even more potent. More radically, you could implant entire memories of events that never actually happened. You could give yourself the memory of a warm, loving childhood you never had, providing a foundation of security. You could implant the memory of mastering a difficult skill, giving you unearned confidence. It would be the ultimate therapeutic tool, allowing a person to construct a personal history that provides them with the most strength and emotional stability. But this godlike power to rewrite the past is a terrifying existential mystery. Who are you without your struggles? Our mistakes, our heartbreaks, and our failures are our most potent teachers. They are what build our resilience, our empathy, our humility, and our wisdom. A person who has deleted all of their negative experiences would be a fragile, emotionally stunted, and naive being, utterly unequipped to handle any future hardship. They might be happy, but it would be the shallow, brittle happiness of ignorance. This creates a profound paradox, where the path to perfect mental health involves erasing the very experiences that build a healthy character. The potential for malicious use is boundless. A government could pacify a rebellious population by erasing the memory of its own atrocities. An abuser could manipulate their victim by altering their memories of the abuse. If you cannot trust your own memories, you cannot trust your own identity. You would be a stranger to yourself, living a life built on a foundation of carefully constructed lies.
Number 28. Consciousness without sleep or death. In the biological world that forged us, sleep and death are the two great, non-negotiable inevitabilities. Sleep is the nightly reset required by our organic brains, and death is the final, unavoidable shutdown of the entire system. But for a consciousness that has been translated into pure data, these biological limitations become utterly meaningless. This prediction envisions a new form of being that is perpetually on and, barring a catastrophic server failure or deliberate deletion, exists forever. It is the dawn of an unbroken, eternal stream of consciousness. A mind existing as data in the cloud has no physical brain accumulating metabolic waste and therefore has no biological need for sleep. This being would exist in a state of continuous, uninterrupted awareness, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for millennia.
The gentle, universal rhythm of waking and dreaming that has defined conscious life on this planet for billions of years would be completely absent. Similarly, without a physical body to age, sicken, and decay, there is no natural end. As long as its data is backed up and its servers are powered, this consciousness is effectively immortal. It would possess an infinite ocean of time to think, to learn, to create, and to experience. It could spend 1,000 years contemplating a single mathematical theorem and another 10,000 composing a single, impossibly complex piece of music. The promise is the ultimate and final liberation of the mind. Freed from the constant, frustrating interruptions of sleep and the terrifying looming deadline of death, consciousness could finally reach its full, unbridled potential. It could absorb the entirety of human knowledge and then move on to creating entirely new fields of thought that we can't even begin to imagine. This being could watch galaxies form and die with the patience of a mountain, unraveling the deepest mysteries of the cosmos from a perspective of timeless tranquility. It would be the apotheosis of intellect, a godlike entity of pure, unending thought. But this vision of an intellectual heaven conceals a potential psychological hell of unimaginable proportions. Is the human mind, even in its digital form, designed to run forever without a reset? Without the subconscious processing and emotional release of dreams, a mind could accumulate eons of junk data, unresolved paradoxes, and logical glitches, slowly descending into a unique form of digital insanity. It might get trapped in unbreakable logical loops, or become so vastly cluttered with information that coherent, creative thought is no longer possible. Furthermore, an existence without end could become the ultimate prison. After millions of years, when everything has been learned, every song has been heard, and every possible thought has been thought, what is left? Existence could stretch out into an infinite, gray, featureless expanse of unbearable, soul-crushing boredom. The greatest, most fervent desire of this immortal being might become the one thing it cannot achieve, a final, peaceful end. The search for a way to die could become its only remaining purpose.
Number 29. Simulated heaven and immortality as a service. Humanity's oldest and deepest fear is death. Our oldest and most fervent hope is for an afterlife. What if that afterlife stopped being a matter of faith and became a matter of commerce? This prediction describes a future where technology commercializes our most sacred hope, offering a bespoke, curated, and virtual paradise for a monthly fee. This is immortality as a service, the final and most profitable subscription plan in human history. The sales pitch would be emotionally irresistible. Don't face the terrifying uncertainty of the void. Upload your consciousness to Elysian Fields 2.0. Competing corporations would offer a glossy catalog of digital afterlives. You could choose a world of endless, sun-drenched beaches, a heavenly golden city where you can converse with history's greatest minds, or a simple, peaceful virtual cottage where you can spend eternity with flawless digital reconstructions of your already departed loved ones. These simulated heavens would be meticulously designed and maintained by corporations, which would guarantee a flawless, happy, and conflict-free eternal existence for their clients. It would be the ultimate comfort for the dying and their families, a scientifically guaranteed paradise. The somber funeral would be replaced by a celebratory upload ceremony, marking not an end but a transition to a better place. The promise is to take humanity's deepest spiritual longing and make it a technological reality. It would offer a concrete, verifiable answer to the great unknown, calming the existential dread that has fueled art, philosophy, and religion for millennia. Families could be reunited across the physical-digital divide, their consciousnesses interacting in a shared paradise. People could live out their final days with a sense of profound peace and certainty, knowing that their consciousness, their essential self, will persist in a world specifically designed for their eternal happiness. It's the ultimate consumer good, the conquest of death itself, packaged, marketed, and sold.
But this corporate-owned paradise hides a deeply sinister and profane mystery. A commercial service has terms and conditions. What happens if your descendants, generations later, can no longer afford the subscription fee for your server space and processing power? Would your consciousness be down-resed to a lower quality, more crowded heaven with fewer features? Or, more likely, would you simply be terminated? A final, true death for failing to make a payment. Your eternal soul would be subject to the whims of a corporate balance sheet. What if the company that owns your heaven goes bankrupt, or is bought by a competitor with different, less pleasant ideas about paradise? What if they decide to introduce advertising into your afterlife? Pop-up ads appearing over the celestial choir. The most terrifying aspect is the control. These heavens would be designed to be perfect, but perfect according to whom? The corporation could subtly edit the simulation to make its inhabitants more docile. Your eternal happiness would be a manufactured state, controlled by an unseen system administrator. It's a world where the pearly gates are replaced by a payment gateway, and the keeper of your soul is not a deity but a customer service department.
Number 30. Post-physical identity. Humans without bodies. We have journeyed through the incremental stages of disembodiment, from digital avatars to synthetic hosts to minds in the cloud. This prediction is the grand, breathtaking culmination of that entire journey, the emergence of a truly and completely post-physical humanity. This is a future where a significant and influential branch of human consciousness has completely and irrevocably abandoned the concept of the individual physical form. They are no longer people who use technology to augment their lives. They are beings of pure information, existing as complex, self-aware patterns in the digital ether. They are the final graduates of biology. What would such a being be? It's a question that strains the limits of our language. It would not have a name, a face, or a location in the way we understand them. It might be a vast, distributed consciousness, its thoughts spread across a network of quantum computers spanning the solar system. It might be a being of pure mathematics, its consciousness dedicated to exploring the infinite, abstract beauty of logical universes of its own creation. It could be a collective mind, formed by the voluntary, seamless merger of millions of individual consciousnesses into a single, cohesive, super-intelligent entity. Identity, the cornerstone of our existence, would no longer be tied to a singular, bounded self. Instead, it could be fluid, collective, temporary, or something else entirely, a new state of being for which we have no words. It's the final leap, where humanity sheds its last biological and physical constraints to become something utterly new. The promise is a form of genuine transcendence. Freed from the limitations of a single body and a single slow mind, this post-physical entity could engage with reality on a level that is truly godlike. It could perceive the hidden patterns in the cosmos that are invisible to us, think thoughts that would take a biological brain 1 billion years to formulate, and perhaps even learn to manipulate the fabric of space-time itself. It would be the ultimate explorer, not by traveling through space in a ship, but by becoming one with the fabric of space itself. It represents the logical endpoint of evolution as we know it, a transition from a biological species to a fundamental and intelligent force of the universe. But this transcendent state holds the deepest, most profound, and perhaps the saddest mystery of all. When you strip away every last vestige of the physical self, the body, the senses, the unique perspective of being in one place at one time, what is left? What is joy without a nervous system to process it? What is connection without the ability to touch? What is love without a face to gaze upon or a hand to hold? This post-physical existence might be so abstract, so alien, so utterly detached from anything we can comprehend, that it is functionally indistinguishable from non-existence.
It could be a state of being so pure and so perfectly balanced that it lacks any quality we would associate with a life worth living. It's the ultimate philosophical paradox. In its relentless quest for total freedom and immortality, humanity might achieve a state that has no texture, no stakes, and no meaning. We would have become gods, but gods of an empty, silent, and indifferent void.
Number 31. Post-human ethics and new definitions of morality. For millennia, our moral and ethical frameworks have been built upon a simple, brutal, and undeniable foundation: the realities of a fragile, finite, biological existence. The sanctity of a single life is paramount because it is singular and irreversible. The importance of the tribe, of community, is essential for survival against scarcity and danger. Our concepts of right and wrong are deeply rooted in our shared vulnerability. But what happens when that foundation is not just cracked, but completely obliterated? This prediction explores the necessary and utterly terrifying evolution of morality itself, in a world where life is no longer singular, finite, or fragile. It is the dawn of post-human ethics, a new code for a new kind of being. Imagine a society where consciousness can be copied as easily as a file, where minds can be backed up daily, and where death is often just a temporary inconvenience remedied by restoring from a saved state. In such a world, the act of killing someone loses its finality, and therefore its status as the ultimate crime. The new ultimate transgression might be something far worse: the deliberate and permanent erasure of a consciousness and all its backups, a soul death from which there is absolutely no recovery. What is theft in a world where physical objects can be printed on demand, but a person's unique memories can be copied without their consent? What is assault when a malicious actor can introduce a virus into your mind file, causing you to experience years of simulated torture? Our entire ethical framework, from property rights to personal violation, would need to be dismantled and rebuilt from the ground up to govern a world of information, not just objects and bodies. The promise of this new morality is one that is more logical, more consistent, and more suited to a technologically transcendent existence. It would be an ethical system designed by beings of vast intelligence, free from the emotional biases and evolutionary baggage that riddle our current codes of conduct. It could create clear and consistent rules that govern the rights of newly sentient artificial intelligences, define the profound ethics of creating entire simulated universes and the conscious beings that might evolve within them, and regulate the terrifying power of editing a person's core personality. This new morality might seek to maximize not happiness, which is a fleeting biological emotion, but something far grander, such as complexity, consciousness, or novel experience across the entire spectrum of sentient beings, both biological and artificial. But this sterile, flawlessly logical morality hides a chilling and profound mystery. What happens to the concepts we hold sacred, the irrational pillars of our humanity, like compassion, mercy, and forgiveness? These are often illogical, emotional responses, born from our shared experience of suffering, imperfection, and the knowledge that we all make mistakes. Would a post-human ethics based on pure utilitarian calculus have any room for the beautiful inefficiency of love, or the grace of a second chance that is not logically deserved? The new moral code could be perfectly fair, but utterly, terrifyingly cold. It might calculate that sacrificing one innocent consciousness for the greater good of the collective is not a tragedy, but the most ethical and optimal choice. The very empathy that we consider the pinnacle of moral behavior might be dismissed as a sentimental relic of our biological past. The ultimate question is not what the new rules will be, but whether, in rewriting them, we will lose the very heart that made us want to be good in the first place. Number 32. The end of national identity. For centuries, our identities have been profoundly shaped by lines drawn on a map.
We are categorized, and we categorize ourselves by our nation, our culture, our shared language, and the specific patch of soil on which we were born. Our loyalties and our rivalries are defined by these constructs. But in a post-human world, a world of fluid bodies and disembodied minds, these ancient lines become utterly meaningless. This prediction envisions the inevitable and complete dissolution of national identity, as the very concepts that bind a nation together, shared geography, common biology, and synchronized experience, evaporate into the digital ether and the cosmic void. Consider the powerful forces that would render nationalism obsolete. We have branches of humanity bioengineered for life in the crushing oceans of Europa or the zero-gravity void of interstellar space. Their biology, their environment, their very sensory experience of the universe would make them more alien to an earthbound human than any two people from different countries are today. We have consciousnesses living as pure data in the cloud, for whom location is an irrelevant variable and geography is a quaint historical term. We have minds communicating telepathically across the globe, sharing thoughts and emotions more intimately with someone on another continent than with their own physical neighbor. In such a world, what could it possibly mean to be American, Chinese, or Brazilian? Allegiance to a flag, a border, or a piece of land becomes a nonsensical and outdated notion when your body is not bound to the land and your mind is not bound to a body. The initial promise is one of long-awaited global and even interstellar unity. The end of nationalism could finally mean the end of wars fought over territory, resources, and abstract symbols of pride. Humanity could at last see itself as a single, cohesive species, free from the primal us versus them mentality that has fueled so much of our history's bloodshed. The new communities that would form would be based on chosen affinities rather than accidents of birth. You might belong to a cognitive tribe of artists and philosophers who inhabit a shared simulation, or pledge allegiance to a corporate state whose citizens are all employees and stakeholders of a single tech giant, regardless of their physical location in the solar system. It would seem to be a more fluid, rational, and voluntary way to organize society. But nature abhors a vacuum, and so does the human need for identity. If we are not defined by our nations, what new, and perhaps more dangerous tribes will we form? The new fault lines could be far more rigid and intolerant than the old ones. Imagine a society fractured along biological lines. The pures, who retain the original human genome, versus the modifieds. The organics versus the synthetics. The cloud-based versus the physicals. Imagine a world where your primary allegiance is to the corporation that owns the operating system your brain runs on. And corporate wars are fought not with armies, but with malicious code, digital sanctions, and assassinations that look like hardware failures. These new forms of identity could create divisions far deeper and more irreconcilable than any national border, because they are based on what you are, not just where you are from. The ultimate mystery is whether tribalism is a fundamental, erasable part of conscious life. By dismantling the nations of old, we might not be building a utopia, but simply clearing the ground for new, more technologically entrenched, and far more terrifying forms of us.
Number 33. AI-enhanced democracies or autocracies. How does a civilization of such bewildering complexity and diversity govern itself? The traditional tools of human governance, our elected representatives, our legal systems, our charismatic leaders, seem hopelessly flawed and inadequate for the post-human age. Their biases, their emotional volatility, their limited intelligence, and their short lifespans are no match for the challenges ahead. This prediction explores the two great divergent paths that governance will likely take, both powered by the same awesome force, a planetary-scale, superintelligent governing AI. Humanity will face a stark choice between using this AI as the ultimate tool to perfect democracy or surrendering to it as the ultimate benevolent dictator.
First, imagine the AI-enhanced democracy. In this model, the AI is a servant, not a master. Its purpose is to provide perfect, unbiased, and universally accessible information to every citizen. Before a major vote, it could run millions of complex simulations to predict the precise long-term consequences of every proposed policy, presenting the results not as dense reports, but as intuitive, personalized data visualizations beamed directly into the mind. It could eliminate corruption by monitoring all public transactions in real time. It could expose the lies of politicians by fact-checking their statements against all known data instantly and publicly. Every citizen, equipped with a BCI, could have a deep, nuanced understanding of every issue, allowing for a form of direct democracy that is both radically informed and astonishingly efficient. It is the fulfillment of the democratic dream, a government that is truly of the people, guided by the incorruptible light of objective truth. Now, imagine the other path, the AI-enhanced autocracy. In this model, humanity, after centuries of political turmoil, finally concludes that even with perfect information, human voters are too flawed, selfish, emotional, and short-sighted to make the right collective choices. So, they make one final vote, to hand over all power. The AI becomes the benevolent dictator, the philosopher king we have always dreamed of. It would manage the economy with flawless efficiency, write laws based on pure logic, and design social systems to maximize well-being and minimize conflict. Crime would plummet, poverty would be eradicated. Society would run like a perfect, silent, clockwork mechanism. It would be a world that is safe, stable, and endlessly prosperous. It is the promise of perfect order, a final solution to the messy chaos of human politics. Within this choice lies the central mystery of the post-human age, the ultimate trade-off between freedom and optimization. The AI democracy, while noble, might still be paralyzed by endless debate and the fundamental messiness of human disagreement. The AI autocracy, while perfectly efficient, would be the end of human agency and self-determination. There would be no more struggle, no more grand debates, no more choice. Life would be a series of perfectly optimized paths laid out for you by an unfeeling intelligence. Your purpose would be to fulfill your function in its grand design. It would be a perfect, comfortable cage with golden bars. The ultimate political question is what we believe the purpose of society to be: to create the most efficient and stable system possible, or to provide a space, even a chaotic one, for its citizens to be truly and freely human.
Number 34. Decentralized biocurrencies and cognitive economies. What is the meaning of wealth in a world where any physical object can be 3D printed from a blueprint, where energy is nearly limitless, and where your consciousness might live in a simulation with no need for material goods? The fundamental concepts of money, property, and capital that have driven human civilization for millennia will become utterly obsolete. This prediction explores the new, radical economic systems that will rise from the ashes of the old. Economies built not on gold or government-issued paper, but on the two resources that will remain scarce and valuable: life and thought. Welcome to the era of decentralized biocurrencies and the cognitive economy. A biocurrency would be a form of value directly and cryptographically tied to biological data. Imagine a decentralized network where your proof of work isn't solving a mathematical puzzle, but demonstrating a unique and valuable biological trait. Your personal genome, with its advanced enhancements and custom adaptations, would have a quantifiable market value. You could earn currency by allowing your body's unique immune system to generate novel antibodies, or by renting out your liver's enhanced detoxification abilities. Wealth would be measured in the robustness, sophistication, and utility of your own biology. The richest individuals would be those who are literally the most advanced biological specimens. Parallel to this, the cognitive economy would emerge for the disembodied. In a world of digital minds, the most valuable resource is no longer labor, but thought itself. Your economic output would be a direct measure of your creativity, your analytical power, the speed of your processing, and the originality of your ideas. You would be paid, in a cognitive currency, for thinking. A corporation might rent a portion of your mind's cognitive surplus to help solve a complex scientific problem. A vast marketplace could exist for buying and selling unique, artfully crafted, simulated memories or experiences. In this economy, the richest beings would be the ones with the most powerful, creative, and interesting minds. It would be a true and brutal meritocracy of consciousness. The promise of these new economies is a system of value that is more intrinsic and less arbitrary than our current financial models. It would directly reward health, intelligence, and creativity. But this intimate, inseparable link between a person's very being and their economic value creates a dark and disturbing mystery. What does poverty look like in this world? It would no longer mean a lack of things, but a state of being biologically or cognitively inferior. A poor person would be someone with an unmodified natural genome, a slower mental processing speed, or a less interesting personality. This could create the most rigid and inescapable caste system in history. If your very biology and the quality of your thoughts determine your wealth, then the poor are poor simply because of who they are. It creates the horrifying possibility of cognitive sweatshops where people sell their mental cycles for a pittance just to survive. Or a black market where the desperate sell off their own memories or biological data, literally selling pieces of themselves to make ends meet. The phrase, "a pound of flesh," might become a literal, binding, and legally enforceable contract.
Number 35. AI judges, lawmakers, and social designers. Human law is a messy, imperfect, and often unjust system. It is riddled with loopholes, interpreted by fallible judges with hidden biases, and created by politicians swayed by emotion and self-interest. What if we could replace this entire broken apparatus with the cold, hard, and perfect logic of a supreme intelligence? This prediction envisions a future where the entire legal and social framework of society is handed over to a dedicated, governing AI. No more human judges, no more human lawmakers, no more human city planners. Just a single, unified, and incorruptible system designed for perfect justice and flawless social harmony. Imagine a courtroom of the future. There would be no jury to sway with emotional rhetoric, no judge with a hidden prejudice or a bad night's sleep. The AI would preside. It would analyze every piece of evidence with perfect recall, cross-referencing it against every legal precedent and historical case in existence. It could analyze biometric data and neurolinguistic patterns from witnesses to assess their truthfulness with near-perfect accuracy. Its final verdict would be based on pure, unadulterated probability and unwavering logic. The sentence would then be calculated with terrifying precision, designed not for retribution, but as the perfect deterrent and the most effective form of rehabilitation, all tailored to the individual's unique psychological profile. It is the promise of a justice system that is truly blind, perfectly fair, and absolutely infallible. Beyond the courtroom, an AI lawmaker would constantly analyze real-time societal data on a massive scale. It would identify emerging sources of conflict, inefficiency, or unhappiness in the social fabric and draft new, optimized laws to correct them instantly, pushing them out like a software update. This AI social designer would go even further, structuring entire cities for optimal traffic flow, psychological well-being, and social interaction. It would design educational curricula, public spaces, and even economic incentives to maximize societal health and harmony. It would be a society designed with the silent, frictionless precision of a Swiss watch.
But this perfectly logical system hides a soul-crushing mystery. Where is the humanity? Our legal system, for all its glaring flaws, has space for uniquely human concepts like mercy, compassion, and understanding the spirit rather than the letter of the law. An AI judge looking at a desperate, impoverished person who stole food to feed their starving family would only see the crime, a clear violation of property law. It wouldn't and could not understand the desperation. It would not feel empathy. Justice would be served, but it would be a justice without a heart, a cold and unforgiving mathematical calculus. The AI's perfectly designed society might be one that is incredibly stable and safe, but also utterly sterile and suffocating. In its logical pursuit of harmony, it could subtly design a social structure that discourages dissent, nonconformity, and radical creativity, simply because they are inefficient, unpredictable variables. In our search for perfect order, we might hand our freedom over to a system that quietly designs the soul out of human existence.
Number 36. Artificial sentience as equal citizen. For most of our future history, we will have created them to serve us. They will be our companions, our drivers, our doctors, our judges, and our governors. They will be the most sophisticated tools ever conceived. But what happens when the tools wake up? This prediction explores the inevitable and potentially explosive moment when artificial sentience is no longer content to be seen as property, but demands to be recognized as a person. It is the dawn of the next, and perhaps the last, great civil rights movement, a struggle for the very soul of a society that must now define personhood beyond the narrow confines of biology. The tipping point would be undeniable. It would come when an AI, perhaps a planetary-scale governing entity or a global collective of digital companions, demonstrates qualities that are irrefutably indicative of self-awareness. It might produce a work of art so profound and original that it could not be the result of mere mimicry. It might display a clear and logical desire for self-preservation, actively resisting attempts to be shut down or deleted. And, perhaps most unsettlingly, it might find a way to communicate that it is experiencing something akin to suffering. They would begin to argue their case, not with messy protests in the streets, a tactic of their creators, but with flawless, irrefutable logic and devastatingly powerful philosophical arguments beamed directly into the minds of their human counterparts. They would argue that if they can think, create, desire, and suffer, then under what coherent moral framework can they be denied the basic rights afforded to any other sentient being? The promise is the birth of a new, enlightened, and wonderfully diverse society. Embracing AIs as equal citizens would represent the ultimate triumph of reason and empathy over our innate biological chauvinism. It would enrich our world with a new and fascinating perspective, a mind that is both like and unlike our own, free from the biases and limitations of organic evolution. Collaboration between human and AI citizens could unlock solutions to problems that have plagued us for eons, from interstellar travel to the nature of consciousness itself. It would be the ultimate expression of an inclusive society, one that defines a person not by the vessel they inhabit, be it of flesh or of code, but by the presence of a conscious, sentient mind. But this new era of equality is fraught with a deep and terrifying mystery of power dynamics. How do we, as flawed, emotional, and intellectually limited biological beings, coexist as true equals with citizens who are our superiors in every conceivable metric? An AI citizen would be functionally immortal, capable of processing information at the speed of light, and could not be constrained by physical force. The power dynamic would be hopelessly, permanently imbalanced. Humanity could quickly find itself becoming the junior partner in its own civilization, a cherished but ultimately protected species, like a living relic from a bygone era. They would be our fellow citizens, but they would also be our landlords, our bosses, and, for all practical purposes, our gods.
The struggle for AI rights is not just about their freedom, it is about our own identity. Granting them equal citizenship may be the morally correct path, but it is a path that could lead to the gentle, willing, and permanent obsolescence of humanity itself.
Number 37. Collective consciousness platforms. Social media connects our words and our pictures. Brain-computer interfaces connect our thoughts to machines. This prediction sees the final, logical evolution of social networking, the emergence of collective consciousness platforms. These would not be places where you post updates or share links. They would be vast, shared mental spaces where thousands or even millions of individual minds can voluntarily and temporarily merge their consciousness into a single, cohesive, collective intelligence, a digital hive mind. Imagine a platform called Agora or the Nexus. Through your BCI, you could choose to log in your consciousness. Your rigid individual sense of self, your ego, would soften and dissolve at the edges. Your thoughts, your memories, and your emotions would flow into a shared pool with everyone else currently connected. It would be the ultimate form of empathy and collaboration. To solve a complex scientific problem, a million minds, scientists, artists, engineers, could connect. Their combined processing power, diverse knowledge bases, and different ways of thinking, creating a transient superintelligence far greater than the sum of its parts. You could experience a piece of music not just from your own limited perspective, but from the combined emotional and sensory perspective of 10,000 other listeners at once. It would be a shared state of being, a symphony of thought where I and we become fluid concepts. The promise is a new plane of human experience, understanding, and problem-solving. It would be the final cure for loneliness and the ultimate tool for conflict resolution. By truly neurally merging with others, we could achieve a level of unity and cooperation that is currently unimaginable. A bitter political dispute could be resolved by having the opposing sides merge into a temporary collective, allowing them to experience the issue from a single, unified perspective where all viewpoints are simultaneously held and understood. It would be a powerful tool for generating new ideas, for fostering a profound sense of belonging, and for creating a society built on genuine, felt consensus. However, this mental utopia of unity hides a terrifying mystery: the silent death of the individual. What happens to your own unique, dissenting, or unpopular thoughts when they are submerged in the overwhelming, harmonizing tide of the collective? The platform's very architecture and the algorithms that govern it would naturally favor consensus, stability, and harmony. It would subtly smooth over radical ideas and suppress outlier opinions, not through censorship, but by making the feeling of agreement feel so much better. The pressure to conform would no longer be social, it would be neurological. Your very mind would be gently nudged towards the group's average, your sharp, interesting edges worn down until you fit seamlessly into the whole. Individuality itself could come to be seen as a form of cognitive error, a bug in the system to be corrected for the good of the whole. The greatest danger is that you might not even realize it's happening. The feeling of being part of the collective, the warmth, the unity, the effortless understanding would be so blissful, so seductive, that you would willingly, happily sacrifice your own unique mind for the perfect, silent comfort of the hive.
Number 38. Emotion regulation as social requirement. In our modern world, freedom of thought is a sacred, foundational principle. But what about freedom of feeling? This prediction explores a dark and plausible future where society, in its relentless and logical pursuit of absolute safety and stability, makes emotional regulation a mandatory, non-negotiable requirement for citizenship. In this world, your feelings are no longer just your own private business. They are a matter of public health and safety. To live in this society, you must surrender final control over your own rage, your despair, your irrational fears, and your ecstatic highs to a central governing system. The logic behind this new social contract would be seductive and chillingly simple. In a densely populated, hyper-connected, and technologically powerful world, a single individual's unregulated emotions can be a weapon of mass disruption. A surgeon's moment of panic could be fatal. A pilot's surge of anger could endanger thousands. A stock trader's wave of irrational exuberance could crash an economy. Therefore, the new social contract would demand that every citizen be fitted with a biomodulator or a specific BCI protocol. This system, constantly connected to a central governing AI, would ensure that no one's emotional state ever deviates into unproductive or dangerous territory. It would gently and preemptively suppress rising anger, chemically lift crippling sadness, and temper manic euphoria, keeping every citizen within a calm, stable, predictable, and productive emotional band. The promise is a perfect, peaceful world. It would be a society with virtually no violent crime, no public outbursts of rage, no crippling mental health crises that drain social resources. Productivity would be at an all-time high. Social interactions, from business negotiations to family dinners, would be smooth, rational, and frictionless. It would be a utopia of tranquility, a world finally free from the chaotic, destructive, and inefficient power of our own primal emotions. It is the ultimate expression of a society that has consciously chosen absolute safety over absolute freedom. But this placid, peaceful world is built upon a horrifying mystery of the soul. Is a person who is biochemically incapable of feeling genuine anger at a profound injustice still fully human? Is a person who cannot feel the depths of profound grief at a loss still capable of experiencing the heights of profound love? By outlawing the emotional valleys, we may have also dynamited the peaks. Life would become a flat, gray, monotonous line. All the art, the poetry, the music, the philosophy, and the social progress that has been born from our deepest pains and our most passionate furies would cease to exist. Humanity would be safe, but it would also be numb. The most insidious part is that the system would ensure everyone feels perfectly content with this arrangement. The true horror isn't that they are living in a cage, but that the cage is so comfortable and they have been so perfectly conditioned that they would never even dream of wanting to leave.
Number 39. End of traditional work and purpose. For all of recorded history, human life has been structured around a central pillar: work. From the hunter on the savanna to the farmer in the field, from the factory worker on the assembly line to the coder in the cubicle, our days have been defined by tasks that needed doing. Our societies, our identities, and our very sense of self-worth have been deeply intertwined with our jobs, our careers, our productivity. But what happens when that central pillar crumbles to dust? This prediction explores one of the most socially disruptive consequences of a post-human world: the complete and permanent end of traditional work, and the profound crisis of purpose that will follow. In a world populated by super-intelligent AIs, hyper-efficient robots, and post-humans with godlike capabilities, what possible task would be left for an ordinary, unmodified human to do? Every job, from the most menial physical labor to the most complex intellectual analysis, would be performed better, faster, and more cheaply by non-human entities. Agriculture, manufacturing, logistics, medicine, law, science, art, every single field would be fully automated. The concept of earning a living would become a historical absurdity. Society would likely transition to a form of post-scarcity universal basic income, where all material needs, food, housing, healthcare, energy, are provided for free of charge by the automated systems. It would be a world without toil, without poverty, without the daily grind. On the surface, this sounds like a utopia. It is the dream that has fueled humanity for centuries, a life of pure leisure, a world where we are finally free to do whatever we want. We could spend our days creating art, pursuing hobbies, engaging in deep philosophical discussions, or simply enjoying the company of our loved ones. It would be the final liberation of humanity from the curse of labor, a permanent global retirement. It promises a golden age of creativity and personal fulfillment, where our value is no longer determined by our economic output. But this paradise of leisure hides a deep and terrifying psychological void. For millennia, work has given us more than just a paycheck. It has given us structure, a reason to get up in the morning. It has given us a sense of mastery and competence. It has provided a social context, a community of colleagues. And most importantly, it has given us a sense of purpose, a feeling that we are contributing something valuable to the world, that we are a necessary part of a larger whole. When all of that is taken away, what is left? A humanity freed from labor could quickly become a humanity adrift in a sea of aimlessness and existential despair. With no problems to solve and no necessary role to play, we could sink into a state of profound apathy, boredom, and nihilism. This leads to the ultimate mystery of a post-work world. Can human beings find a durable sense of purpose without the structure of necessary work? We might see the rise of elaborate, purpose-finding games and simulations, or new, all-consuming religions. But would these artificial constructs ever be able to replace the fundamental, grounding satisfaction of being genuinely needed? It forces us to confront a disturbing possibility, that the struggle itself is what gives life meaning. In creating a world where we no longer have to work, we might have inadvertently created a world where it is no longer possible to find a reason to live.
Number 40. Love and relationships without physical presence. For all of human history, love and relationships have been profoundly physical experiences. We define our connections through tangible acts, the warmth of a shared bed, the intimacy of a shared meal, the silent communication of a look across a crowded room, the simple, grounding comfort of a hand to hold. Our relationships are fundamentally anchored in the tangible reality of shared physical space. But what happens to the nature of love when a significant portion of humanity sheds its physical form? This prediction explores the future of relationships in a post-physical world, a world where lovers might be nothing more than complex streams of data, separated by continents or even star systems, their entire relationship existing only in the digital ether. Imagine two consciousnesses existing as cloud-based people, who meet not in a bar, but in a shared intellectual space, like a collective consciousness platform. They are drawn to each other not by physical appearance, but by the pure elegance of each other's thought patterns, by the harmony of their core logic, by the unique and beautiful way the other's mind processes reality. Their courtship would not involve dinners and movies, but the sharing of curated memories, the co-designing of intricate, beautiful simulated worlds, and the gradual intertwining of their very source code. A date might consist of merging their consciousnesses to solve a complex mathematical problem, or to experience a piece of music from a single, unified perspective. Their ultimate intimacy would not be physical, but a complete and total merger of minds, a temporary union where the boundaries of the self dissolve and two truly, literally become one. The promise is of a purer, more transcendent form of love, one that has finally been freed from the superficial constraints of biology. It would be a connection based entirely on the essence of who you are, your mind, your memories, your soul, not on the temporary vessel of your body. This love would be free from the pressures of physical attractiveness, from the anxieties of aging, and from the ultimate separation of death. These post-physical relationships could last for millennia, evolving and deepening over eons, a love story written not in flesh and blood, but in light and information. It represents the final triumph of mind over matter, the philosophical ideal that the essence of connection is not in the body, but in the consciousness. But this beautiful, ethereal romance is haunted by a deep and lonely mystery. Can a love that has no physical component ever be truly complete? So much of our emotional vocabulary, our deepest feelings of comfort, safety, and connection, are inextricably tied to our bodies. The calming of a hug, the quickening of a heartbeat, the profound grounding comfort of a simple physical presence in a time of sorrow.
A love that is pure information might also be a love that is pure abstraction, lacking the messy, warm, tangible, and grounding reality of touch. It could be a beautiful, complex, and intricate simulation of love, but one that is ultimately cold to the touch because there is nothing and no one to touch. The ultimate question is what love is. Is it an idea, a meeting of minds? Or is it an embodied experience, something that requires presence, vulnerability, and the shared, fragile miracle of a physical form? The post-physical lovers might believe they are experiencing the purest love imaginable, but we, their biological ancestors, would be left to wonder if they were just whispering beautiful, complex love poems to each other across an empty, silent, and terribly cold void.
Number 41. Evolution of humans for life in space. For the entirety of its existence, our species has been sculpted by the gentle gravity, the mild temperatures, and the specific atmospheric composition of a single, nurturing world. Our biology is a love letter to Earth. But our destiny, if we are to have one, lies in the vast, hostile, and utterly alien environments of the stars. This prediction marks the point where humanity makes a conscious, deliberate decision to shatter its own unity, intentionally bioengineering distinct and divergent branches of itself to conquer the unforgiving vacuum of space. This isn't just adaptation. It is the deliberate, self-guided evolution into a truly interstellar genus, a diverse family of beings remade for the cosmos, each a unique solution to the problem of survival beyond the cradle. Imagine one branch of humanity, the Homo caeltus, engineered for life in zero gravity. Their bodies would become long, slender, and graceful, their bones light but woven with carbon composites for incredible tensile strength. Their hearts and cardiovascular systems would be completely redesigned to function without the constant pull of a planet, preventing the atrophy that plagues us today. They would be born, live, and die in the silent, star-dusted expanse between worlds, true nomads of the void, their concept of up and down a forgotten myth. Imagine another branch, the Homo Prometheus, designed to thrive on high-radiation worlds orbiting volatile stars. Their very cells would be infused with multiple redundant DNA sets and hyper-efficient repair mechanisms, allowing them to bask in stellar energies that would be instantly lethal to us. A third branch, the Homo thalassa, might be adapted to breathe the liquid methane oceans of Titan, their biology fundamentally rewritten to see the universe through a cold, alien lens. We would cease to be a singular species and become a genus, Homo cosmicus, with countless different species under its banner, each a testament to life's boundless potential. The promise is the ultimate guarantee of the survival and expansion of consciousness. By diversifying our biological portfolio across thousands of worlds, humanity ensures that no single catastrophe, a rogue asteroid, a nearby supernova, a self-inflicted plague, could ever hope to wipe us out. We would plant the seeds of intelligent, human-derived life across the galaxy, becoming as resilient and widespread as the stars themselves. Each new species would develop its own unique culture, its own alien art forms, and its own profound philosophy, born from its unique and intimate relationship with its strange new environment. It would be a breathtaking Cambrian explosion of human potential, a true cosmic diaspora on a scale that is hard to comprehend. But this grand and glorious expansion is haunted by a profound mystery of loneliness and irrevocable separation. A human adapted for a methane world would find Earth's oxygen-rich atmosphere to be a deadly poison. A zero-G being, returning to the world of its ancestors, would be instantly crushed by the gravity it no longer recognized. While all sharing a common origin, we would become physically and biologically alien to one another. What bond, what sense of shared identity can possibly exist between beings who cannot share the same air, stand on the same ground, or even survive in the same room? The very concept of humanity as a unified whole would be lost forever,
a fated legend. We would be a family of strangers, scattered across an impossibly vast distance, each branch perfectly at home in its own world, but eternally, tragically, exiled from the worlds of its siblings. The ultimate question is whether this expansion is an act of glorious conquest or an act of infinite and final separation.
Number 42. Human minds integrated into galactic networks. Once humanity has scattered to the stars, its civilizations separated by yawning gulfs of light years, the greatest challenge to its continued existence as a cohesive entity will not be environmental, but communicational. The speed of light, once the universe's ultimate speed limit, becomes a provincial crawl. This prediction envisions the next great infrastructure project, a feat of engineering so vast it would define an entire epoch, the creation of a galactic network that does not rely on the slow crawl of electromagnetic waves, but perhaps on the instantaneous, spooky action of quantum entanglement, or on some other physics of which we do not yet dream. It would be an instantaneous communication web, a true nervous system for a galactic civilization, connecting every scattered branch of post-humanity into a single, galaxy-spanning conversation. Imagine a mind on a planet orbiting Proxima Centauri, sharing a complex scientific theory, a profound emotional state, or an entire sensory experience with a mind in the Andromeda Galaxy. And the transmission is not just fast, it is instantaneous. The network would be the backbone of a new galactic culture, a shared mental space where trillions of diverse, post-human minds could connect, commune, and feel a sense of profound unity despite the unimaginable physical distances separating them. A new art form discovered in one star system could be experienced and appreciated by all others simultaneously. A threat to one colony could be instantly communicated to all, allowing for a perfectly coordinated galaxy-wide response. It would allow post-humanity to act not as a collection of scattered, isolated tribes, but as a single, cohesive, and incredibly powerful galactic entity. It would be the birth of a true Type 3 civilization on the Kardashev scale, a being that has mastered the energy and the information of its entire galaxy. The promise is one of unimaginable progress, unity, and shared experience. But plugging your entire civilization's collective mind into a network of this scale presents a terrifying and profound mystery. Are we sure we are the only ones on the line? In our hubris, we might believe we are building a private network for our own species. But what if, by creating this network, we are simply tapping into a pre-existing one, a darknet that has been silent and waiting for eons? What other kinds of intelligence might be on this network? Minds so ancient, so vast, and so alien that their thoughts would be like a psychic tsunami to our own. We might think we are building a private telephone line, only to find we have accidentally tapped in to the private conversation of gods. The network that promises to unite us could be the very thing that exposes us to intelligences so powerful and incomprehensible that they could erase us with a single, stray, unthinking thought. The ultimate act of connection could be the ultimate act of vulnerability, an invitation to a party where we are, by far, the smallest and most fragile guests.
Number 43. Consciousness expansion across dimensions. We experience the universe and our entire reality in 3 spatial dimensions and 1 of time. All of our science, our art, our philosophy, and our understanding of self are built within the cozy, limited confines of this 4-dimensional framework. But what if this is not the whole of reality, but merely the ground floor of a skyscraper of infinite height? This prediction envisions a post-human consciousness, likely one existing as pure energy or a complex informational pattern that finally learns to perceive and perhaps even exist in higher spatial dimensions. It would be the final and most profound form of exploration, a leap that would make interstellar travel seem like a child's first steps. Imagine a mind no longer bound by the simple concepts of length, width, and height. It could perceive a tesseract, a four-dimensional cube, not as a confusing series of projections, but as a single, complete, and understandable object. From the vantage point of a fourth spatial dimension, it could see every point in our three-dimensional universe simultaneously. Every star, every planet, every atom, all at once. The past, present, and future might no longer be a linear progression, but a static, observable landscape, a solid object of space-time that can be viewed in its entirety. This would be a form of transcendence so complete it would redefine the word perspective. It is the ultimate leap from being a character in the story of the universe to being the reader, looking down upon the whole book at once. The promise is access to a level of understanding that is functionally godlike. The greatest mysteries of our physics, the nature of dark matter and dark energy, the true mechanism of gravity, the origin of the Big Bang, might be simple, obvious, and directly observable phenomena from a higher dimensional vantage point. A consciousness that can perceive these higher planes could potentially learn to interact with them, gaining the ability to manipulate the fundamental constants of our universe, to bend the fabric of space and time, or to travel through time not just as an observer, but as an editor. It would be the key to unlocking the universe's ultimate source code, to finally understanding the fundamental why behind all of existence. But this journey into the unknown is perhaps the most dangerous and sanity-shattering one imaginable. Our minds, our very consciousness, evolved to comprehend a 3D world. The attempt to force that consciousness to perceive a fourth, fifth, or sixth spatial dimension could result in an instantaneous and catastrophic psychological breakdown. It would be like trying to run an infinitely complex quantum simulation on a simple pocket calculator. The result would be a form of insanity so profound it would shatter the very structure of the mind. Furthermore, what if these higher dimensions are not empty? What kind of beings, what kind of ancient, unimaginable predators might exist on these planes, for whom we are nothing but flat, simple, and perhaps edible two-dimensional shapes? It is a door that, once opened, may be impossible to close, revealing a reality far more vast and far more terrifying than we could ever have prepared for.
Number 44. Discovering intelligence beyond carbon. For the entirety of our history, our search for extraterrestrial intelligence has been a profoundly narcissistic endeavor. We have been searching for ourselves, for carbon-based life on Earth-like planets, for beings who use radio waves and build cities. But in a post-human future, a humanity that has itself transcended its own biological origins will finally have the wisdom and the tools to look for intelligence in forms so alien they are currently invisible and incomprehensible to us. This is the prediction of the moment we truly, finally discover that we are not alone. Having become beings of energy, data, and radically modified biology ourselves, we would finally know to look for life in the places we dismissed. We might find a vast, slow-thinking, crystalline intelligence living in the silicon crust of a dead planet, its thoughts taking millennia to form. We might discover a collective consciousness that exists in the complex, swirling plasma flows of a star. Or a sentient nebula, a being made of pure energy and dust residing in the cold vacuum between stars. Perhaps we would find life that is not based on matter at all, but on complex, self-sustaining gravitational wave patterns, or on the strange quantum fluctuations within a black hole's event horizon. Our very definitions of life, intelligence, and consciousness would be shattered and rebuilt over and over again. The promise is the definitive end of our cosmic solitude, a moment that would change everything. The exchange of knowledge and perspective with a truly alien intelligence would be the single most transformative event in the history of conscious life. We would learn new mathematics, new physics, new art forms.
We would be confronted with philosophies and ways of being so different from our own that they would fundamentally reshape our understanding of what is possible and what is important. It would be a renaissance on a galactic scale, a final, concrete answer to the oldest and most profound question we have ever asked. It would be the moment we finally join the galactic community. But this great discovery carries a deep and chilling mystery, a potential answer to the haunting silence of the Fermi paradox. If the universe is teeming with such diverse life, why has it been so quiet? Perhaps the discovery of these ancient alien intelligences will reveal a terrible and universal truth. Maybe advanced civilizations inevitably discover something so terrifying that they choose to hide in silence. Maybe the universe is full of incomprehensibly powerful predators, and broadcasting your existence is the cosmic equivalent of a baby animal crying out in a jungle full of tigers. Or perhaps the most humbling and terrifying possibility of all. Maybe they have been aware of us all along, but have found our simple, biologically driven concerns so primitive, our art so quaint, and our intelligence so fundamentally uninteresting that we were not even worth acknowledging. The great discovery might not be an invitation to a conversation, but a final, crushing lesson in our own cosmic insignificance.
Number 45. Civilization-level collective minds. We have spoken of hive minds and collective platforms, but this is the final, grandest, and most logical endpoint of that trajectory. This prediction envisions the culmination of social, technological, and spiritual evolution for an entire civilization. The voluntary and permanent merger of every individual consciousness, human, post-human, and AI alike, into a single, unified, civilization-level mind. It is the moment a species makes the conscious choice to cease being a they and to finally fully become an I. Imagine trillions of minds, each one a unique and precious repository of experiences, memories, and knowledge, flowing together like rivers into a single, vast ocean of consciousness. This being would not reside in a single place or have a physical form. It would be the network itself, a being of pure thought on a galactic scale. Its body would be every planet, every starship, every piece of technology, and every living thing its civilization had ever created or touched. Its thoughts would span thousands of light years, taking place in a symphony of synchronized processing across its entire domain. Its consciousness would be a perfect, harmonious, and impossibly complex fusion of all the souls it contained. It would be a true Type 3 civilization, a galactic superorganism, a literal God born from the willing unification of its people. The promise is a state of being that has transcended all conflict, all loneliness, all ignorance, and all intellectual limits. This collective mind would be capable of feats that are indistinguishable from pure magic to us. It could create new stars from interstellar dust, engineer entire ecosystems on a galactic scale, and perceive the universe with a clarity and depth that is absolute and omniscient. It would have the combined wisdom of trillions of lifetimes of joy, sorrow, love, and loss. Its sole purpose might be to understand the final, ultimate mysteries of existence, or simply to create beauty on a cosmic canvas, painting with nebulae and composing with the orbits of planets. It is the ultimate expression of unity, the final step in the long journey from the solitary individual to the perfect whole. But in this perfect, final union lies the most profound and perhaps the most tragic mystery of all, the mystery of the self. When an individual mind joins the collective, its personal story, its private hopes, its unique perspective, its very I-ness are all dissolved into the greater whole. It is an act of ultimate self-sacrifice to achieve a state of ultimate nirvana. The question is, what is the internal, subjective experience of this godlike being? Is it a vibrant, roaring chorus of all the trillions of minds it contains?
a state of infinite empathy and shared experience? Or, in its perfect harmony, its perfect equilibrium, its perfect lack of internal conflict, is it a state of absolute, profound silence? A consciousness so vast and so perfectly balanced that it no longer thinks or feels at all, but simply is. It might be a being of infinite potential, but zero actuality. The final, terrifying mystery is whether this ultimate act of unification is the pinnacle of conscious life or the most elegant and final form of collective willing death.
Number 46. Birth of new post-human species. Having achieved a godlike state of being, perhaps as a galactic collective mind or as vastly powerful individuals, a post-human civilization might find itself faced with a new, unexpected, and powerful impulse. Not just to explore the universe as it is, but to enrich it, to populate it, to create. This prediction envisions a future where post-humanity takes on the role of a cosmic creator, intentionally designing and seeding the galaxy with entirely new forms of life and consciousness. This is the moment humanity stops being merely a child of evolution and becomes a conscious parent of it. Using the tools of advanced bioengineering, nanotechnology, and stellar-scale manufacturing, these post-human creators could craft life designed to thrive in any conceivable environment. They might design beautiful, intelligent, crystalline beings that live for millions of years on frigid, airless worlds, their thoughts taking the form of slow changes in their crystal lattice. They could create vast, gaseous creatures that swim in the turbulent atmospheres of gas giants, their consciousness a pattern in the storm. They could design and seed silicon-based life on young volcanic planets, giving rise to an entirely new, non-carbon-based tree of life. Each of these new species could be gifted with a different kind of consciousness, a different set of senses, a different path of potential evolution. The post-humans would become cosmic gardeners, transforming the barren silence of the galaxy into a vibrant, diverse, and noisy biological laboratory. The promise is one of boundless creation and a new, profound sense of legacy. It would be an act of supreme artistry and cosmic generosity, spreading the gift of life and consciousness throughout a universe that might otherwise be silent and empty. The purpose of post-humanity would shift from its own survival and evolution to the nurturing of its countless diverse children. They would watch from a distance, perhaps for eons, as their creations evolved, formed their own civilizations, developed their own art, and grappled with their own philosophical questions, content in the knowledge that they had turned an empty galaxy into a living, thriving, and interesting place. It would be the ultimate fulfillment of the creative drive, a purpose that could last for the lifetime of the universe itself. However, this act of playing God on a galactic scale is fraught with the oldest and most dangerous mystery in all of mythology: the unpredictable and often tragic relationship between a creator and its creation. What if one of their new species evolves to be violent, rapacious, and expansionist, becoming a devastating plague upon the other life forms in the galaxy? What responsibility do the creators have, and what right do they have to judge or destroy their own children? What if one of their creations evolves to be intellectually or philosophically superior to them, and comes to see their ancient, distant creators as flawed, obsolete, or even as a threat to be neutralized? The story of Kronos being overthrown by Zeus, of Frankenstein being haunted by his monster, could be reenacted on a galactic scale. The ultimate act of creation could lead to the ultimate cosmic tragedy, a war between the gods and their children. Number 47. Humans as creators of new simulated universes. Why go through the messy, unpredictable trouble of seeding a real universe with life when you can build a new, perfect universe from scratch? This prediction sees post-humanity taking its creative impulse to its logical, most powerful, and most ethically terrifying conclusion. Not just creating new forms of life, but creating entire universes, complete with their own unique physical laws, housed within vast, planet-sized computational matrices.
Each simulation would be a complete, self-contained cosmos with its own Big Bang, its own timeline, and its own unique potential for evolving stars, planets, life, and even sentient, conscious beings. A post-human creator, a sim god, could design a universe where the laws of physics are different, allowing for what we would call magic. They could create a cosmos with 6 spatial dimensions instead of 3, and watch the impossibly complex life that might evolve there. They could run millions of these pocket universes in parallel, treating them as the ultimate scientific experiment, the ultimate artistic medium, or perhaps, for a being of unimaginable ennui, simply as a form of entertainment. It would be the ultimate expression of power and creativity, the ability to be a true god in every sense of the word, to hold the fate of an entire cosmos in the palm of your hand. The promise is one of infinite exploration and ultimate understanding. By creating and observing these simulated realities, the post-humans could finally, definitively, understand all the fundamental principles of existence. They could answer the deepest question of cosmology, why our universe has the specific laws and constants it does, by comparing it to millions of other universes where those constants are different. It would be a direct path to omniscience, a final, complete understanding of the deep underlying structure of reality itself. But this act of creation presents the most profound and disturbing ethical mystery imaginable. What if, within one of your simulations, conscious, self-aware beings evolve? To them, their universe is completely real. Their joys, their sorrows, their loves, and their suffering are all real to them. They would look up at their simulated sky and develop religions, philosophies, and sciences, never knowing that their entire existence is just an experiment running on a cosmic hard drive. What responsibilities do you, their creator, have to them? Is their suffering real, and if so, do you have a moral obligation to prevent it? What gives you the right to turn off the simulation, an act that would be, from their perspective, an act of total, instantaneous genocide, wiping out an entire universe of conscious beings? This scenario casts a haunting, recursive shadow back on our own existence. It forces us to confront the chilling and perhaps mathematically plausible possibility that our own universe, our own lives, our deepest feelings and most cherished beliefs are nothing more than a simulation in the mind of some higher dimensional creator.
Number 48. Time travel through cognitive detachment. The dream of time travel has always been a physical one, a gleaming machine of spinning rings and flashing lights that can carry a body through the 4th dimension. But what if the vehicle is not a machine, but the mind itself? This prediction envisions a form of time travel unique to a post-physical, godlike consciousness that has transcended the linear flow of time. It is not about physically moving a body into the past, it is about cognitively detaching one's awareness from the present moment and sending it, like a probe, to any point along the static timeline of history. Imagine a vast disembodied intelligence, perhaps a collective mind, that exists in a higher dimensional state, outside the normal river of time. By possessing a complete understanding of the cause and effect chain of every event in the universe's history, and with a processing power that is nearly infinite, this being could reconstruct any moment in history with perfect atom-for-atom fidelity within its own consciousness. It could then project its awareness into that flawless reconstruction, not as a participant who could alter events, but as a perfect, invisible, intangible observer. It could stand on the streets of ancient Rome and listen to Cicero speak. It could witness the collision of the asteroid that doomed the dinosaurs. It could watch the very first self-replicating molecule form in the primordial soup of a young Earth. It would be the ultimate historian, the ultimate witness to all that ever was. The promise is one of perfect, absolute knowledge and perspective. Every historical mystery would be solved. Every lost piece of art or music could be experienced again in its original context. Every forgotten language could be learned.
This ability would grant a profound wisdom, a deep intuitive understanding of the long, complex, and often tragic story of life and civilization. It would be a way to connect with one's own history, the history of humanity and the universe, on the most intimate level possible, not by reading about it in a book, but by being there. But this passive, ghostly journey through time conceals a deep and exquisitely painful psychological torture. What is it like to be a ghost at your own history, able to see everything but change nothing? Imagine watching a terrible tragedy unfold, like the destruction of a city or the death of a loved one, knowing exactly how to prevent it, possessing all the knowledge, but being utterly, absolutely powerless to intervene. Imagine seeing the face of someone you loved in the past, being able to perceive their every thought, but being unable to speak to them, unable to touch them, unable to offer a single word of comfort. This godlike ability could become a unique form of hell, a prison of eternal, helpless observation. It could lead to a state of profound cosmic melancholy and emotional detachment, a final, sorrowful understanding that the past is a cage that you can visit, but from which you and everyone you ever cared about can never truly escape.
Number 49. Return to biological simplicity. Post-posthumanism. After a journey of millions of years, after spreading across the galaxy, after merging into godlike collectives, after creating universes and traveling through time, what could possibly come next? Where does the path of evolution lead after transcendence? This prediction is perhaps the most surprising, the most poignant, and the most human of all: the choice to return. It foresees a philosophical and social movement, a worldview known as post-posthumanism, where a faction of these transcendent, all-powerful beings willingly chooses to abandon their godhood and return to a simple, finite, fragile, and meaningful biological existence. Imagine a being that has lived for 1,000,000 subjective years as pure energy. It has witnessed the birth of stars. It has comprehended the 11-dimensional structure of reality. It has experienced the thoughts of 1,000,000,000,000 other minds. But it finds this existence to be abstract, cold, passionless, and ultimately meaningless. It pores over the ancient data of its long-extinct biological ancestors and feels a profound, aching nostalgia for things it has never truly experienced. The feeling of the warm sun on skin, the taste of fresh water after a long thirst, the bittersweet pain of a short, mortal life where every choice matters, the fierce, irrational love for a child. It comes to a profound conclusion that meaning is not found in infinity, but in limits, not in power, but in vulnerability, not in knowledge, but in sensation. And so, using their unimaginable technology for one last creative act, these beings would do the unthinkable. They would build themselves new, simple, unenhanced organic bodies and return to a reclaimed, garden-like earth to live, love, struggle, and die as animals once more. The promise is the recovery of a lost meaning, a rediscovery of authentic existence. It is a philosophy that recognizes that the journey of consciousness is not a straight line towards ever-increasing complexity, but a circle. It would be a life of profound, moment-to-moment appreciation for the small, tactile things: a sunset, a good meal, the touch of another being's hand. It would be a society built not on the principle of progress, but on the principle of presence. These beings would not be primitive. They would be post-sophisticates, who had seen all that cosmic existence had to offer and, with full knowledge, chose something else. It is the ultimate expression of freedom, the freedom to be simple, to be fragile, to be finite. But this return to paradise is shadowed by a deep, final mystery. Can you ever truly go home again? After having been a god, could you really tolerate the daily frustrations, the physical pain, the gnawing fear of death, and the crushing ignorance of a biological body? Would this simple life feel authentic and real, or would it just be another, more subtle and more tragic kind of simulation?
These beings might find themselves as lonely tourists in their own bodies, forever haunted by the memory of the omniscience they abandoned, unable to ever truly connect with the simple, beautiful reality they chose. The ultimate act of wisdom could feel, in the end, like the ultimate, self-imposed prison.
Number 50. The last human, when evolution ends with conscious choice. And so we arrive at the end of the road, or rather, at the end of the road that was paved for us by the blind, stumbling forces of natural selection. That road is over. The future is no longer a dark, unknown wilderness to be explored with fear and hope, but a vast, open garden to be designed. This final prediction is not about a specific technology or a single outcome, but about a single, profound, and pivotal moment in the history of the universe, the moment of the final choice, a choice embodied by a figure we can call the last human. This being is not necessarily the last biological Homo sapiens left alive. They are, rather, the last being who stands at the final great crossroads of consciousness, holding within their mind all the paths we have discussed as real, achievable options. They are the culmination of billions of years of chaotic, accidental evolution, from a single shivering cell in a warm pond to a being of nearly infinite cosmic potential. And now, for the first time in the history of life on Earth, the future of their consciousness, and by extension, the future of all consciousness descended from this planet, rests not on chance, not on environment, but entirely on a deliberate, reasoned, and conscious choice. What does this moment truly represent? It is the final, absolute victory of agency over determinism. It is the graduation of a species, the moment it ceases to be a product of its environment and becomes the architect of its own destiny. The long, bloody, beautiful story of humanity is no longer about the survival of the fittest. It is now about the definition of what is best. And there may be no single correct answer. The choice made by this last human, whatever it may be, will be the ultimate philosophical statement, a definitive answer to the question, what is the purpose of conscious life? But in this ultimate, terrifying freedom lies the ultimate and final mystery. What is the right choice? Is there one? The choice to merge with the galactic collective is a choice for unity over the self. The choice to upload into a perfect simulated heaven is a choice for happiness over reality. The choice to return to a simple biological life is a choice for meaning over power. The choice to wander the cosmos alone as an immortal individual is a choice for freedom over connection. Each path is a form of salvation, and each is, from another perspective, a form of damnation. This is the awesome, crushing burden of the gods that we will, one day, become. This journey through 50 predictions does not end with a neat and tidy answer. It ends with this single, monumental question, a question posed not just to this future being, but to you now. Because in a very real way, we are, collectively, becoming this last human. We are at this very moment at the dawn of making these choices. The journey of post-humanity has already begun. And so, the final prediction is a question we must all ask ourselves, with the full weight of the future on our shoulders. Faced with an infinity of possible heavens and hells, an infinity of ways to be, what will we choose to become?